Greetings everyone, and welcome to The Hill is Always Greener, a show where four friends have chill discussions about Sonic the Hedgehog to distract themselves from the inevitable passage of time and their own rapidly waning ability to relate to the youth. And boy, time has in fact passed since the release of today's topic. We'll get to that. But yes, it's... oh, goodness. Sorry, it takes me by surprise sometimes when I acknowledge everything. But I am Falero.
I'm Rock the Jake.
I'm Cyberlink.
I'm Game Buddy.
And with us this week we have my friend Ginger Hale. So hi!
Oh, hey, what's going on?
Welcome.
Welcome, Ginger.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Before we go on to our main topic, Ginger, someone I know almost exclusively me, knowing you through this Discord server we're a part of.
Mostly.
Boy, what you want to tell us about your history with Sonic the Hedgehog and why we have you on here?
Sure thing. Well, as best as I can remember it, I was one of those kids who grew up with the adventure games on GameCube. Was probably my formal introduction. Just not to say I didn't go back and check out, because they did keep releasing all those compilations, so Mega Collection, Gems Collection, so, I got a little bit of everything, and Sonic X was playing on Foxbox, and et cetera, et cetera.
Sure was.
Ooh, let me tell you. That's about where I got started, and since then, I've been a pretty big fan. Even at some point I ran at least one gimmick account, and I may own a vanity URL that points to a very stupid idea I came up with, but and I had a buddy actually help me program it.
I did let the gang know about that.
my buddy Eblo helped me actually program this. If you go to carnivalnight.zone, it's exactly what you think it is, but with some little features, let's say.
We don't even want to spoil the surprise. Just go there right now, audience.
It's what you think it is, but there's some nice bells and whistles to so it's not too traumatic.
I remember when .zone got dropped, as a potential URL, and Sonic fans were diving on that.
There are a decent amount from what I saw, because I was researching when I was going to make my purchase, weighing my options, and there are a few out there already taken. Green Hill I don't think it's pointing to anything right now, it's just squatted, but boy, that one was worth a lot apparently.
Oh boy.
I imagine it would be.
So I've been told about this website a couple times, but I haven't had the chance to check it out. So
we're getting
live on stream. Here we go.
I was about to say, should we do it live on the podcast?
Yeah, go for it.
Please.
All right, I have it entered into the URL, and here we go. We just I'm not going to spoil it, but immediately upon seeing it, it just makes me laugh, so good job on that.
Yeah, I can't take all the credit. I did come up with the idea, but it was actually just a buddy of mine, Eblo. We have there's credits there somewhere, I know, but yeah, he actually helped put that thing together, so
I very much enjoy this.
just a silly little idea I had after browsing all that. It's been quite a while since I've become a Sonic fan, let's say.
So, today we are talking about a Sonic game that was released more or less around this time, at least time of release of episode. Yeah, it was August 15th, 2017, and just a few days away from now in terms of calendar. And so this game is just a few days away from its 6th anniversary. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about Sonic Mania. Oh man!
Oh yeah!
Woo! It feels really weird to think that was almost 6 years ago.
Yeah,
It hurts so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
That's
man!
such a time.
I mean, I will forever remember that reveal trailer. Mostly because that reveal trailer is where I took the frame to get my Sonic tattoo from. So,
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yep, I like this game a lot.
This game, which is just about to be the same canonical age as Cream the Rabbit. So,
That's an interesting unit
I don't
of time.
even know where to start with that.
What a comparison!
How many Cream the Rabbits is...
yeah, that's the new
this?
scale. But yeah, Sonic Mania. This is... Man, where do I start with this? So, Well, go on, Luke.
I was gonna say, it's hard to know where to begin with this game because it is such a confluence of, wholly unique circumstances just in terms of how this game got off the ground and what, how it eventually came together. Because it is such a unique kind of set of circumstances compared to literally every other Sonic game.
It's so strange that we even got it, I feel like. Because I know people had been demanding a game like this for a long time. At least people like me really wanted a game of this kind. And it's weird that we got it at all because I really wanted it, and the things I want don't always align with what Sega wants to give us. And I suppose it makes sense that this wasn't just something Sega came up with on their own. In fact, you could say it's kind of like an independent game that was run through Sega. Because it started, because we've had, multiple attempts of doing, classic 2D stuff, usually headed by Sega or other companies that they'd work with, including Sonic 4, which we'll get to, and then we had the well, we're gonna have to, maybe even this year. And then there was the generation stages, which actually brought classic Sonic back, which is something we never thought we'd get. But then we have this actually something that feels like it's from that era in a way. And man, sorry, someone needs to take this because I'm still baffled by the fact that it exists.
It is interesting that, looking forward, Sonic Mania kind of was a harbinger of things because, working with kind of this external team on this retro revival sort of thing, it was kind of the foot in the door for other stuff of that nature with Sega properties. Like, you would later on see, Streets of Rage 4, the Alex Kidd remake, the House of the Dead stuff, Panzer Dragoon. A lot of these other Sega properties getting these retro revivals through external studios reaching out to Sega instead of, these internally developed things. And it's cool that even beyond just being a really good game, it did kind of start this trend for classic Sega revivals.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And, I'm glad. And this is not the first time that a games company will go back to create, something that's modeled after the old games. Obviously, we had stuff like Mega Man 9 and 10, which are made to look like the old NES games. But, I don't know why it felt strange for Sonic to do it, but I'm glad it happened. And, oh man, because, this, after the Taxman remakes, the Christian Whitehead remakes of Sonic 1, 2, and CD, it seemed almost inevitable to have this team go back and be like, actually, what if we made our own Sonic game? And that's essentially where this was spawned from, is them experimenting with the idea of making their own one, which is where Sonic Discovery came from. That's kind of the prototype version of what would eventually become Sonic Mania. I don't know if we actually have a lot of information about it. There's not a lot of information. We know that it existed. But I feel like the original idea was to just make a straight up, from the ground up, original Sonic game. And then Iizuka came along and was like, oh, that's really cool. What if we did that, but also you put in lots of classic stages so people have stuff they recognize? And also, can you put the Death Egg robot at the end of Green Hill Zone? And they were like, bit weird, but all right. And they did.
I think that is the part that kind of blows my mind the most. And also the part that, not picking on anyone here, but people like to ignore, that the devs have been very upfront that this was a completely Sega and Sonic team supported project that could not happen without them. That they were given guidelines like that and helped shape the scope of the game, but this was not Sega brought these people on and let them do whatever they want, and they had no help. And so years later, when Sonic Forces comes out, you can say, oh man, Sonic Team just still doesn't have it. It's well, I mean, they let Mania happen, so it's of course I have my criticisms for Sonic Team, but shepherding Sonic Mania sure as hell ain't one of them. Like, I again, like you said, it just blows my mind that this happened at all. Like, this isn't Nintendo seems so much more open about embracing every age of Mario. Like, even Mario Odyssey, like, has little 2D sections, and yep, that's the little original Mario sprite. Whereas it feels like until... I mean, like you said, Sonic 4 and Generations were like kind of acknowledging the vast history of Sonic, but it really didn't seem like until Mania that they were like, no, we are embracing like everything. We aren't just pushing like the new the current Sonic thing is the thing that we want like fans new and old to carry forward. It's like, oh, what if we take everything? And that had some rough spots too. Like you had the I'm sure we'll mention it once we get to the plus content, but that was when like, oh yeah, classic is its own separate universe that can't touch modern. And finally, thankfully, it seems like they have finally thrown that out and just decided to embrace everything as its own like little its own connected universe instead.
I think it's because, like, Sonic Adventure was the new starting point for Sonic. We love Sonic Adventure, but they were, like, essentially saying, like, this is the new brand of Sonic. This is what Sonic will look like from now on. This is the style and everything that we want to be associated with Sonic. So it feels like Sega were really hesitant to go backwards to, like, to the opposite of the brand that they'd worked a long time to establish, which is this new Sonic. So, but I think that they've eased out of that over time, and now we've gotten to the point where they're like, you know what, people really, really like classic Sonic. All right, come on, classic Sonic, you can have your stuff, and it's worked out quite well for them now that they've actually acknowledged that. I can get why they've done what they did, but yeah, can't leave him out in the cold.
I also feel like we've talked about the Taxman remakes, but I also feel like there was quite a bit of like history leading up to Mania as far as the inclusion of the fan base in kind of shaping Sonic in some sort of official capacity, because I feel like one of the biggest kind of renaissance moments was when Sonic and Sega got on Twitter and was actually getting popular and was, kind of interacting with the fan base more, making some more just content there that people were finding favorable. And I feel like that was like kind of where it all started. And then, we got the creation of the Taxman remakes, and then those got ported into several different gaming hemispheres. And then, just like keep trotting down the road, and we eventually get to Sonic Mania.
Yeah, it definitely feels like maybe compared to, say, Nintendo, that Sega has definitely embraced sort of the fans and the fan works in a way, comparatively at least.
Are you saying Sega does when Nintendo don't?
True.
Man, I was trying to figure out a way.
Yeah, to a point of litigation in the case of Nintendo in terms of not embracing the fans, but when it comes to I do like the say, because this whole team is like fans, like super fans, like he would say a bunch of maniacs about Sonic. Now, I know you could get into the whether or not it's right to refer to such people in such negatively charged terms, but hey, this is by the Mania for the Mania, and they've embraced that. It's like, all you crazy Sonic fans out there, all you mentally unwell Sonic fans out there who have the brain worms that can't let this stuff go, this is for you.
For me?
Yeah.
I can safely say I think it definitely hit, because I just remember release day being... Everybody was popping off on release day. That was such a fun day to experience.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I am currently looking across the room at my... worth pointing out that this started as a digital-only game, but they did have that collector's edition that came with the very nicely modeled giant classic Sonic statue standing on top of the Mega Drive 1. With
I've got that too.
Mine might literally be in microphone range, but I couldn't tell you if the batteries are even working at this point. Yeah. Here, give me 1 sec.
We've been talking about how like super fans were kind of responsible for this, and that's not just in the creation of the gameplay and the physics by Taxman and by Stealth through the Retro engine, but we also had T. Lopes who did a lot with the soundtrack. We had the wonderful, the amazing, the radiant Tyson Hess with like storyboards and animation, and it's been said a lot by tons of people, but this really was a labor of love by people who genuinely love Sonic as like a character in a franchise and something that is able to be cherished in a very positive way.
Yeah, I think the important distinction is like you were saying just a second ago, Valero, is like, yes, this team was made up of like Sonic fans, and this is like a game for fans by fans, but like everyone involved is like a consummate professional that like knows what they're doing, and like also does does work outside of Sonic. And I think that I just wanted to acknowledge that like again, when people get in like, yeah, the fans made this one, it's like, yes, but it was a very specific group of fans who knew
just
what
some
they
of the
were
best
doing.
Fans in their craft of doing. Like,
yes.
It's not like always like, while there is acknowledgments to make that fans have made some really great Sonic content. We did a whole fan games episode, but it doesn't always mean like fans equals quality. Fans equals like attention to detail like you would not believe, but it doesn't always mean you're going to get a really good product. But trust us, this is good. This is real good, as you'd expect from these people.
Yeah, I think the nicest way I can say that is fans do bring incredible amounts of passion to their subjects, but you do definitely still need like a guiding hand, which again, like I said, is so unbelievable to me. Like even now that is exactly what happened. That this is a fully a fully endorsed Sega product. Like, man, it really is. Like, I remember when, I think it was right after it came out and maybe during some of the previews where, I don't remember exactly who started saying it, but like Sonic Mania does feel like the lost Sega Saturn Sonic game that just never happened.
Oh yeah.
That's what it was intended to be as well. Like, I feel like that's what they were aiming for.
Yeah, I was going to say, that feels very intentional.
I mean, aside from the fact that it's like widescreen and stuff, it's like they were like going for that kind of like, what would be possible if we actually got that Sega Saturn Sonic game that we didn't really get? And that was kind of like what they did here. And man, it's good. I love it because the Saturn has its complicated history. It was by no means the most successful Sega console, but I have a lot of nostalgia for that time period. And there were times where I just wish we had a really good Sonic game on here that wasn't just like a re-release of or a port of ones that had been on the Mega Drive. And this could have been it.
Yep.
I know. It's so heartbreaking now what I've learned about the Saturn, like even just doing the show, that it was like more geared towards 2D games, and they really just forced lots of 3D stuff on there because they, the PlayStation came out and they thought that's the only thing people wanted. And man, yes, just to think what could have been. Mania is a little alternate reality, wonderful thing.
Just to get it out of the way, the people who are the developers for this were Pagoda West Games and Headcanon. Headcanon, I'm pretty sure, like, who's running Headcanon? It's at least one of the folks involved with the remakes, right?
Yeah, Simon Tomley, Stealth.
So that was Stealth, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of their sort of representation, and of course, Plus would involve Hyperkinetic Studios for that big old release. It's a lot of people working on this, and you can't. Like, here's the thing. Lots of people, and this goes back to what me and Jeremy were going on about. Lots of people will actually list this in a top Sonic fan games list as being like one of the best ones, and like, you cannot really call this a fan game. It is not independent, and it was made by lots of people, including Sega themselves. So, anyway, sorry, annoyance again. Moving on.
Feel much better about putting on a list of the best Sonic games, period. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You boot this game up, and you do get that lovely little animated intro with all its wonderful little smear frames, and you're like, oh, it's kind of like Sonic CD, but man, I gotta say, we've already mentioned Mr. Lopes, the musical composer here. I, especially going through another quick run of the game before we started recording, the musical identity that this game has is so amazing to me. Like, you have the remixes of the classic stages, which are also like, I remember it took me a couple of times listening to them just to realize that not only do they manage to sound like the original songs, but also like have so many like modern touches, and of course the Act 2 usually mixes it up. The game's like little intro theme that shows up in its own, it shows up in other jingles like Speed Shoes and Invincibility, and oh man, it might be like one of my favorites. Like revisiting Sonic 1 and also seeing like that also has its own little themes, and I just cannot sing the praises of T-Lope's like Sonic Mania soundtrack more.
It's that leitmotif that you like to have in your games, and I am the same way. So much so that when we get, like, classic Sonic shows up in Sonic Forces, complicated opinions we have on that game aside, it plays the little I was like, oh yeah, I'm having fun for a second here.
I mean, even the sound effects, like, I'm pretty sure that my text message notification on my phone has been the Sonic Mania menu confirm, which I believe not too long ago, T-Lopes on his Twitter said, like, oh yeah, I made that too. And it's like a combination of like 6 different, and yes, I just love every little bit of sound design in this game for real.
Yeah, I remember when we got our like first taste of what the soundtrack was going to sound like. I want to say there was some event, and they actually weren't they giving out like USB sticks or something?
Oh my gosh, crazy. Yes, I think you're right.
I think it was the Green Hill arrangement, and then also I want to say Studiopolis. And
I think that's the first things we saw. Yeah,
as soon as I heard that, I knew we were in good hands. Oh boy.
Yeah,
it's like not even to sound too blasphemous, but it almost made me think like they should have just brought in T to do like the new music for Origins. I've said before, the new tracks we got on on the Origins collection are not bad. It's just, I think I would have rather had this.
I mean, they did bring him in just for the cutscenes.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just got such a good handle on that style of music, like the original Mega Drive Genesis stuff, and also like the CD style stuff, and just everything that's classic Sonic, but also like stuff that's in that genre or that general vibe, because not everything is like he's introducing all new things. Like the Studiopolis theme, as we mentioned, is kind of its own thing. It vibes with the kind of thing you'd hear on Sonic CD, but it's like, well, again, like, it's one thing to have fans who are, like, hyper-focused on one thing, but T-Lopes is a musician, man. Knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, because of this, I am a fan of, like, his non-Sonic stuff for sure. Mm-hmm. Like, that Ninja Turtles soundtrack, kicks so much ass.
That might have been my favorite soundtrack of last year.
Can you believe the Shredder's Revenge, like the fight against Shredder, the people they brought in for that one track? It's like this is a Ninja Turtles video game. You didn't have to go this hard.
Like, who do we get for the, quote unquote final boss fight of our, Ninja Turtles game? Oh, of course, the Wu-Tang Clan. Because Wu-Tang is for the children.
Hell yeah.
Puppy is good, but Wu-Tang is the best. Okay?
I'm sure y'all will be able to point out. I honestly, it's been so long, I do not actually remember a lot of the differences between vanilla and plus. I'm sure we'll get into them as we're moving into the game itself.
Yeah, there's a few I can think of. Some of them are bigger than others. That's for sure.
Yeah, aside from the stuff that was locked behind plus, like the DLC purchase, the main differences were like new transitional cutscenes between zones for the ones that didn't have any, and then the reworked Metal Sonic boss fights. Those were the big things.
I was going to say, the original vanilla release that was digital only to begin with, I wouldn't say rough around the edges, but compared to like what would be like the free patch that we would get with the Sonic Mania Plus, when the Sonic Mania Plus came out, everyone got the free patch that basically, I wouldn't say fixed the game, but certainly improved some of the elements that people weren't too crazy about.
It filled in a few of the holes.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Just a little bit of maintenance overall. Although they did rework a whole boss battle, which we'll get to, and also like provided some level transition. And to be honest, like my first playthrough of this game, I loved the game, but every time there was not a level transition, I was like, oh, Sonic 3 and Knuckles would have done that. Considering they're pulling a lot from Sonic 3 and Knuckles here. Just like, I don't know, shoddy workmanship here, lads. But I'm sure that a lot of this is down to time. Like, they had a release date that they needed to hit, so some things had to be left to the wayside that weren't, like, game-breaking.
Yeah,
so it's fine.
The connections to Forces, I'm sure, definitely part of that. Lockstep. Little interconnecting... Yeah.
You know, we should probably just get that out of the way. This game is directly... Okay, let's... I'll save the really good connection. I'll save that for last, because
basically this game is a prequel to Sonic Forces. I'm sorry, we were all kind of disappointed to find that, but it still works on its own, even though that fact is baked right in there.
Man... I remember when Forces was still months out, but this game had come out, and I think it might have been a discussion with y'all, you know, years before this show, where I might have even said, like, well, I mean, Mania was such a home run that they won't screw this up, right? Right, guys? Fellas?
Well, together we can show the world what we can do. We can pick it up and you can play it too.
Meanwhile, me, who had played it months before release at E3.
No.
Keeping my fucking mouth shut.
Oh, because yes, the Phantom Ruby it directly carries over into Sonic Forces. Also, I believe the encore content is allegedly like set after like classic Sonic comes back home, quote unquote, from Forces, as well as like the Sonic Mania adventure shorts. And I mean, honestly, when you lay it all out, it doesn't actually affect anything in Sonic Mania. You don't need to know that. It's just like okay. The one, I mean, the super cool thing that I appreciate to this day is I do like the riff in the final boss in Sonic Mania that is very reminiscent of the main riff from Fist Bump, the theme of Sonic Forces. I think that's super cool, actually.
Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won. Together we can show the world what we can do. You are next to me and I'm next to you. Push me on through until the battle's won. No one's gonna
It sounds really cool, but it does remind me, oh man, I've enjoyed this one. It was just a classic Sonic game.
Now, maybe it's just me. I kind of unironically love Fist Bump just for...
You're not alone.
Like... we have hashed out Forces is like nobody's favorite and was a disappointment for a lot of reasons. I do love that song. It's just like I like I remember it having to grow on me, but like the original version of Endless Possibility, I was like, you know what? No, this is the like kind of like super earnest like Sonic music that I really like. And so yeah, I really like Fist Bump, and so love that little riff in the Egg Reverie final boss fight. I think that is also been my ringtone for about 6 years too.
All right, nice.
We are probably getting way ahead of ourselves
I was
right
about
now.
to say.
So let's go back to the past, like the Sega we're doing here.
Get the Forces stuff out of the way.
Let's get the gripes out of the way so we can just have a good time talking about a good game. We talked about like when it was released. I think also like a really important part of the release, like long before the release, was the announcement, like the announcement trailer, when we found out exactly what we were getting here. Because this came out of nowhere. Like it was at, what kind of event was it? It was at this special like Sonic Anniversary event, I think, that we first got the trailer.
Comic-Con, I wanted to say.
Wow, yeah, okay.
Well, wherever it was that this happened, I think it might have been some sort of Sega thing. The trailer dropped, and I've always go back to watch the fan reactions to that because it's very funny hearing people getting really excited, like specifically just seeing like a classic Sonic thing, like as it goes back in time and so to go forward in the future, Sonic must go back to the past, and there he is, Sonic zipping around, and then they announce the characters. It's like Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and everyone goes yeah.
Even before that, seeing people freak out when Christian Whitehead's name came up.
Oh yeah.
It just felt right.
Yeah. Oh man. So, that's just sort of like really summed up how excited people were for this. And, we were all like, we weren't there, but we kind of were. Like, I think all of our voices were heard in that moment.
Spirit.
Yeah.
Because we're just those kind of Sonic fans. Maybe I can't speak for everyone, but me, my first Sonic games were the classics, the old Mega Drive ones, and so anything that like calls back to that, I'm just like, oh, it's the thing, I like the thing, but this is a whole game of that. So yeah, it's very exciting, and like we mentioned, there are 3 characters: Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and Sonic and Tails if you like it that way. Most people do, and they play pretty much like they do in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Again, that's going to get brownie points from me. Except, Sonic has a brand new move. He's got the drop dash. No insta-shield, unless you turn that on later, you can. Which, I will admit, the first time I played this, like, I didn't use it very much. But now I'm like, oh man, how did I play a classic Sonic game without this little thing?
I know, yeah.
I think we've joked about it before, but I mean, this was the like official canonization of the drop dash, was it not?
It was.
This is an
official. It had roots as far back as like early versions of Sonic 1, I believe.
I think it was Sonic 3. I think Sonic 3. Well,
Sonic
maybe.
3.
Maybe at the very least,
one of the
people
Genesis
found
games.
it in the prototype of Sonic 3. And then Christian Whitehead was like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Just a coincidence. And like, sure, mate. Well, we don't know. We can't say for sure. But we are always learning new things about classic Sonic games, so either way, it's a cool idea that, like, I didn't really understand why I would ever want to use it until I did. And yeah, the idea that you just, like, do a little spin attack and then press the button again, hold the button again, and then Sonic starts revving up in the air and then drops down and you let it go and he zips off. It's great for speedrunning.
Yep.
It's a cool idea.
I really like it. Gosh, just to quickly share a silly little thing, I'm just remembering memories of the reveal and the announcement trailers, but I know I'm pretty sure Sega's had this afterwards, and they might have even had it before, but it just stuck out for this one where it said, all the intro dialogue, but then it says Sega proudly presents, and I remember thinking like, oh man, here we go. Like they are calling their shot. Oh man. It just stuck out to me, and it was like it gave me goosebumps seeing it for the first time.
I'm glad for once they didn't have to be like Sega begrudgingly presents.
Yeah. Sega tentatively presents.
Sega is forced to present.
Contractually obligated to present.
Sonic forces Sega to present.
But I think it'd probably be a good time to actually get into like the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, suppose we might as well.
How it all starts out, because you hit that new save file. See Eggman messing around, with his latest little discovery, that dang ruby, just causing all sorts of trouble.
Yeah, you hop into Angel Island Zone just for a cutscene, at least in the original game, and there's a bunch of egg robos. They're doing something. It's this whole bit is like, remember Sonic 3? Yeah, I do actually. I remember it a lot. Well, here is a bit from that. And then all of a sudden, they find that Phantom Ruby and everything's Zawarado's. And you're off in Green Hill Zone, because of course you are.
But man, it is a very good-looking Green Hill.
Yeah, we can never escape.
No, you cannot escape Green Hill. I'm sorry. But you know what? It's fine. If you're going to do it. They always go back, but I like that they do for every so often.
In this, it really is like it's back and better than ever before. Because man, it does such a good job of we talked about the music presentation, and the first act is, just from my cursory glance, is pretty much a one-to-one of the original. But then you get into Act 2, and you start seeing the new things and the new gimmicks. And I believe all the way back on our episode on the 8-bit Sonic games, we had a sudden realization that a lot of the cool stage gimmicks and even a lot of the stage transitions in Mania remind me of those 8-bit games. And man, I think they're all just really good. From the I think it's the zip lines in Green Hill to the the crazy like DNA launching platforms in Chemical Plant. It's good stuff.
And like even the kind of cavernous areas in Green Hill are like pulled directly from the Generations version.
Yep.
Yeah.
They dug in. They definitely found a lot of little bits and pieces and just sort of combined it into, honestly, it's probably the most beautiful Green Hill's ever looked, really. Just that sprite work.
I agree, yeah.
Looks lovely, sounds lovely. Like Act 1 is like, it's just T-Lopes like giving us a nice, a nice done up, gussied up version of Green Hill from Mega Drive. When Act 2 hits, you're like, oh, this is like one of those like, it's one of those like 90s ass sort of like summertime theme song, hit of the summer, if you will.
The real Saturn version of 3D Blast energy.
Oh, I love that sort of stuff. I live for that kind of stuff. It's real good. It just opens up into a whole new thing. Man, that's kind of like, that's what I always loved about Sonic 3 and Knuckles is like, Act 2 was like, okay, here's the real stuff. And that's it. That's what we're getting here. Love it.
It really is, for the most part. A lot of those Act 1s, it's a relatively faithful recreation of the original. In most cases, not all. But then you get into the Act 2 and, he's just able to just go off the rails and take it in a real different direction. And honestly, it's just so good.
I know. I really like when they mix it up. Like, I'm pretty sure Chemical Plant Act 1 is like a cool combo of the original Sonic 2 Act 1 and 2. So they can really open it up for the Mania's Act 2. But I love when they do that. I think Hydrocity also does that a lot with their Act 1. It's a combo of like the originals. And
well, Act 1 of we're getting ahead of ourselves, but Act 1 of Hydrocity is actually almost like this is the water levels from all the other games, less so more Hydrocity.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an original take of that. Like I said before, this is like you see the mission statement set out, like the assignment set by Izuka, who's just like, hey, could you give us the Death Egg robot in Green Hill? And I'm like, okay, here's the first actual big boss. And it's just the final one from Sonic 2, but it's not really. It's just bonkers, actually. He's coming at you, he's telescoping his arms out like in Sonic Generations. it's silly, but I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's almost a combo of it is the final Sonic 2 boss, but it's almost plays a little bit more like the Sonic 3 and Knuckles, not Doomsday, but the other Death Egg robot. when it's coming towards you and whatnot, it's just really cool.
But for the first stage, it's fine though, because it's not as hard as those, so don't worry.
It's more meant to take you by surprise than anything else. And sorry folks, if you expected any different kind of episode than us just gushing about how good this game is, well, you came to the wrong one, because that is what the rest of this is gonna be. Woo.
Yeah.
But please rate positively and subscribe anyway.
I know you came to engage with negative content. We all do in a weird way. That's what the internet wants us to do. But come on, let's be positive for once in our lives. So we're talking about Sonic Mania.
Negativity? Not today. It is, just to say something else, like, it is such an interesting and cool way to basically start the game where, you start with Green Hill, but then, again, the boss is the egg robo with telescoping arms and stuff like that. And it feels like that moment of just like, wait a minute, this is the thing that was like at the end of a previous game, but like we're starting out with it. All right, then where do we go from here?
This ain't your mama's Sonic game. Was the transition to Chemical Plant in the original release where I especially love how there's a different version for each character where they're like, oh, Chemical Plant, let's go, and then they get a little drip of goop on them and have to shake it off.
Mostly yes. Tails didn't have one, and then they added one with the plus patch.
Oh, thank God, because Tails is my favorite, especially if you're playing as Tails alone, and then he shakes it off like a little puppy dog. Oh my gosh.
I do also like Ray's.
Blows it off.
Oh,
Ray, he just gets the drop on his head, and then he just kind of slicks his hair back up into its little point. It's very good.
It's so interesting where all of the original animations for this game were obviously made with like modern platforms. So I think it's all animated, with like 60 frames in mind compared to like the original games where it's, the animation isn't as filled out. And to where I remember there was even a little bit of like culture shock, like going back to the original games and just not seeing, like the detailed expressions they managed to pull off with the sprites in this. And they're just so good. Like we mentioned the visuals, but the characters themselves, like these might be my favorite classic versions. Like Sonic Sprite especially is such a perfect blend of all of the classic games. And I've seen some of the concept art where they like made the decision to like, okay, well, you basically combine them all, but with a little bit more towards Sonic 2 than Sonic 3, where he kind of got like a redesign. But I love how his colors really are like a combo of like every classic Sonic sprite. There's a little bit of Periwinkle in there. There's still the deep blue of a quote unquote modern classic Sonic from like Sonic 2 forward. And they're just gorgeous. These characters are wonderful. And they still manage to like add wonderful little details to them, like Tails' little flight cap and goggles when he's flying the tornado.
Yeah. And Sonic with his little prototype goggles that never made it into Sonic 1, but we all knew about.
Yeah.
Also, Knuckles is pink. This seems to be another well, it's not fully pink, but he's pinker.
It's more just a side effect of everybody's a lighter shade than usual.
Maybe so, but mostly Knuckles is like a combination of like his Sonic 3 and Knuckles sprites and his Chaotix ones, especially in terms of animations, because he's got a bit more going on with him, especially when he's like gliding and climbing and stuff. I like it. It's Chaotix didn't add a lot to the table in terms of actually being a good game, but it gave us some good Knuckles material to work with at least.
Yeah, this feels like the beginning of the Knuckles renaissance as well. It's like, remember how cool Knuckles was?
Well, he's back.
Yeah.
I imagine opening up like the modern memory constraints of a modern console versus what they had back then. I imagine that let them go about as ham as they wanted to on the animations, and it shows.
Yeah, that's true.
without like sacrificing any of the original charm of the classic Sonic games, because you know, we were just talking about Sonic Advance recently, and that's got some great little animations because it's not like quite as reliant on like making sure it's got that same vibe as the original games. But I do like that they're giving you the feel of the original games, but also just like getting a little fun with it, getting a little crazy, and sort of like what they would have done if they didn't have those limitations, I suppose.
Yeah, everything they do feels like an intentional choice. Like, I thought it was interesting playing through again and going through levels as Super Sonic and seeing where like they obviously probably sat down and said like, okay, what supersonic sprites are we going to do? Like, we can do so much more than the original games where it was just like, oh, this is just Sonic recolored, you know, with the supersonic yellow. But there are still some poses, like specifically, gosh, in the very last level when you have to jump into the egg robo like rockets and they like just blast you into the wall. Like, there's no unique supersonic sprite for that one. And I'm like, okay, well, that was definitely intentional though. And I imagine when they were planning this out, said like, here's everything we can do, here is everything we should do when it comes to the character designs and animation.
Also worth noting that Supersonic did get more sprites when they brought out that free update. That sort of like they sort of basically fixed there's not quite high as a frequency of just Sonic but recolored yellow in the sprites. They make sure that the spikes look right when he's like when he's spinning around and rotating and stuff. And I like that. I like it when fan games did that, and wouldn't you know it popped up in this one.
Yes, that is one of my few like, oh, it's not just like the original, but I'm glad where they added some extra poses in Sonic 3 and Knuckles when most of this team would do Sonic Origins as well.
This conversation about like just, you know, how good the sprites look and like the level design and all that, it just makes me really appreciate, again, on a whole other level, that Sonic Mania even happened, because on a grander, like a big picture scale, it shows just how great it is to still to not abandon the way that older games looked, like 16-bit and 8-bit, because with modern hardware now, you can still take that same aesthetic in the same limitations in some way and then expand on it in such amazing ways, like the new animations with the characters and with, you know, experimenting with more 3D graphics in levels like in Studiopolis and Stardust Speedway and stuff like that. And it's just cool that like we have such a successful game that not only takes the old style of how to create a game, but then builds on it, implements new modern things, and everything is so cohesive and works together. And I feel like on a big picture scale, like that's what art should do. It should always reference the old, but then expand on it and make something new out of it.
Yeah, reminds me a lot of our conversation we had with Sam of Freak Zone Games, talking about like using a lot of those techniques in Spectacular Sparky, of specifically using modern development tools and techniques for like 3D games, but in a retro inspired 2D game to achieve that same feel.
And on that topic, this takes us to the special stages, which you can find littered around like Sonic 3 and Knuckles style in giant rings. And what we have here is a nice sort of like, it's also retro styled, but not like okay, so it's a low poly Sonic for a start. Low poly Sonic, low poly environment, and God, I love that look.
It sure looks good.
I love when they reduce the amount of polys on purpose to create that sort of limited Sonic R-like kind of look. Yeah, the special stages are sort of like an amalgamation of all the ones that came before in a way, because you've got like the fish and birds in the background, you've got like the UFOs from Sonic CD, you've got the running around like in the Sonic 2 ones, collecting rings, and picking up spheres like in Sonic 3. But it's its own. This one's good. Like, I think we often talk about like sometimes the special stages would change the game style a bit too much. And while this is obviously different from the main game because it's in 3D, it's momentum based. You've got to like gather top speed while also staying on the course. It feels really good. They're really tricky. I certainly did not get the hang of them right away when I first played it.
Even like now, the back half still gives me a lot of trouble.
number 6, man. That one just I screwed that up so much.
I was going to say, I specifically remember the second to last, the penultimate one, being the actual toughest one. But I really do feel like it's got a great learning curve and that they are challenging but fair, and very, very few instances where I messed one up and thought like, oh no, that was like, oh, well, that's on me. I just need to give it a couple more runs. These are also like, it's hard not to say like these might be like my favorite special stages aside from, I mention it a lot. I really don't know when I get right down to it if I enjoy blue spheres or if it's a weird Stockholm syndrome thing. I do really enjoy the blue spheres that are in Sonic Mania as well.
I'm in the same boat.
I am an unironic blue spheres madman. I love those because I love Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I got those stuff in my head, so yeah, I'm glad that they're here. But it's a bit weird having them as bonus stages because they kind of like slow things down a little bit, and you don't really get like any helpful power-ups or anything from them. But I like that they're there.
They are extremely bonus stages since they unlock bonuses, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But I also believe I like to think I'm a Blue Spheres enjoyer. I will say out of the original batch, I think, from Sonic 3, definitely, I can definitely vibe with that. It's just the more they add on, and obviously once you get into if you go to Blue Spheres cartridge and the almost endless permutations, I'm sure it just gets out of control at some point, but it is pretty fun no matter what.
I do. I mean, specifically the new ones in Origins like frighten me. I still have not mastered those.
Definitely tougher. Yeah.
I'm glad they exist. I think that is a super cool thing, and then the new ones in Mania as well. But yeah, once you start adding like, what is this lime green sphere? Oh no, that's different and scary.
I think this is also a good point to mention that we all have played Sonic Mania in so many different ways because it has been ported to a lot of different devices, but in leading up to this episode specifically, Luke and I had the chance to play Mania in unintended ways.
That's a word for it.
Yes. And I was sure to like keep updates in the Discord chat, but I was able to play this on the PS Vita.
Vita means life.
And Luke was able to play Mania on the Nintendo 3DS.
Interesting.
And
Yeah, I would not take either of them over the official versions. So.
yes, absolutely.
I realize, they're homebrew and it's impressive that they're running at all, but those homebrewed versions, you can't get them running without an official copy anyway, and even if you do, there were some sacrifices made.
Yeah. In bringing this up, I in no way want to say, hey, do not pay for the game, because this is a game that's worth your money, and honestly worth your money several times, because I think we've all paid for this game several times.
I think I own all 4 official versions.
Oh my god.
But yes,
they keep going on sale.
But Luke and I had some discussions here and there about how like certain levels, and especially the special stages, have some slowdown. The special stages really have slowdown. But with how bad I am at special stages, just in general, the slowdown that happened in the Vita version of Sonic Mania actually helps me big time, because
he's activating bullet time in the middle.
Yeah, basically. I'm using bullet time for the UFO stages, but I can see the track ahead of me, and I have what feels like 2 whole minutes to like plan. Like, okay, I know I have this much drift, so I need to start hitting the button now, and then do this jump here. And I think on my original playthrough, when I played it on either PS4 or PC, I maybe got like 2 or 3 emeralds, and on the Vita with the slowdown, I'm actually like getting more now, and it feels good.
I would never play the 3DS version over the official versions, because like 20 to 30 seconds to load a new stage or transition from the special stage back to the normal one is a little much for my liking.
Yeah. That's okay. So that's interesting, because you and I didn't get to discuss like bits and pieces of our versions. I want to play it on the 3DS too, just to have that comparison. But on the Vita, I think except for maybe 1 or 2 situations, I didn't have any like load times in between stages. Really, the only big load times I had occurring was with special stages, and if I was going from one stage to another, and there was just like a lot of graphical elements on screen, especially 3D.
Yeah, like there were definitely, some stages with heavy graphical elements that just did not run well in general, but the load times between stages was like the big thing for me. And admittedly, 3DS is not exactly powerful hardware, so it's not terribly surprising, but it is unfortunate.
Were you playing on a like original 3DS, or were you playing on a new
No,
Nintendo?
new 3DS.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I had extra power, and it still ran like butt.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad we got to talk about this because, yeah, and I have an original 3DS XL, so I'm sure it's going to be even worse when I try it out.
I'm sure the Saturn could have pulled this off. Like none of this handheld stuff.
That version doesn't even run the intro videos. So, like I said, sacrifice had to be made, and it's probably slightly wishful thinking on my part, but I would love it if whatever team is working on this, I'm sure they're going to continue to revise it, but if the team working on it could get some rudimentary 3D effects going, because I know that somebody has been porting Sonic CD with the 3D layers, so maybe someday.
Let's just slap that on and tank the frame rate even harder. Let's go.
Exactly.
Let's go.
1 frame per second.
I mean, that's just that's movie Sonic style, isn't it? Speed, everything goes super slow.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 3D in the theater.
There's that too. Anyway. Oh yeah, also there's other levels.
Oh yeah, there are, yeah.
There's actually, by the way, there's a lot of zones in this.
True.
Akin to Sonic 3 and Knuckles, so I'm okay with having a longer one. But so we mentioned Chemical Plant briefly, and here it is. It's also back because they keep going back there too. I guess Sega just really likes Chemical Plant Zone. To be fair, so do I.
People really like the music.
Yeah, that's and the stages are very fun. I do know lots of people who maybe checked out of this game once they got to near the end of the first act, because it is, like Jeremy mentioned, it's like a combination of Act 1 and 2 of the original Sonic 2, and you've got that part which everyone hates with the rising chemicals and the drowning music inevitably. Yep. So, but once you get past that and you get into Act 2, and everything's different now. It's a chemical lab, I think. I quite like that.
Yeah, you have the...
It's wacky workbench bouncing in a way that is not annoying.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's true, that's true. You essentially make little formulas by you jumping on giant syringes, which is a bit weird, to make even bouncier chemicals that you can bounce off. It's very fun, actually.
Sonic's ahead of the slime trend. You just make some slime right there, just have a ball with it, That's why Sonic's still cool with the kids. He keeps with the times. It's all about slime now.
I was going to say the creators looked at Portal 2 and thought, bouncy gel? Yeah.
Oh yeah, the propulsion gel. Yeah, that's what I would think of.
But yeah, that's the big gimmick of Act 2. You have the different colored gels, which there's only really 3. There's deep blue, light blue, and then green, and they all make you, well, except for deep blue, they make you bounce.
Deep blue is the same stuff from the original that would pop out of those little faucets. But
except for now you've got some that you can fall into, and it's it's bubbles and it's nasty. And we have talked about it before, but still to this day, the boss of Act 2 of Chemical Plant being a Puyo Puyo battle, a mean bean
machine.
I have to say, same friend that helped me build that website, to this day, I will still just randomly, he will message me on Steam. The only thing he will say is, so how about Chemical Plant Act 2 boss? I will, maybe not verbatim, but that I will just get those once in a while. And honestly, I agree. I agree with his statement.
Such a moment, though, of
it is.
Oh, they did, those nerds. They didn't. They did. It is you're going up against the easiest AI in a Puyo Puyo battle possible, and out of necessity. Because imagine if they just gave you Satan level AI to fight against.
Oh, God.
I was screwing this up really bad this time because I was trying to make a big chain, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna lose. and Robotnik still failed. Like, so it's just like, whatever. He's not very good at his mean bean machine.
His skills have deteriorated. He's not on top of his game anymore. He hasn't kept up.
I mean, to be fair, that was a different Robotnik, I suppose. AOSTH Robotnik knows how to boil those beans, I guess.
I know we mentioned it before, but I just love that they managed to keep that a secret until the game actually came out.
We saw lots of footage of Chemical Plant Zone, including Act 2, and they kept that under wraps, as they should have. Perfect. Because the beans kind of look like... We've seen multicolored things across the level. It kind of makes sense. Maybe you're making steaming beans in the chemical plant. Yeah, sure. Whatever, it's fun.
So that's where they house the mean bean machine.
Yeah, that makes
In the chemical plant. Okay, no, that logic follows.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of machines there.
So I think this explains partially where Robotnik gets his funds, because he's actually making GMO food to be able to sell out to the world, and the chemical plant is where he creates it. Actually, if you think about it, there's like some of the zones in here you can try to obfuscate into ways where this is how Eggman gets funding, because Press Garden, he has a newspaper that he destroys the environment to make.
To print all of his propaganda. Same thing with Studiopolis.
Oil Ocean kind of explains itself.
Yeah. Oil.
But if there's any industry that's making the big bucks, though, it's got to be Hollywood, am I right? You know?
Hey!
That bring-
Yeah, you get that suggestion in
Even
Studio
Sonic
Zone.
the Hedgehog is not immune.
Even Sonic the Hedgehog is not immune to the Motion Picture Association of America.
Studiopolis is the first completely original zone, and again, just playing through it again, I was like, hot damn, this might rocket to the top of my favorite Sonic stages period list, because it is.
Before we move on, Jeremy, I do want to acknowledge that you called it Studiopolis. You're as bad as Amy in Sonic Heroes.
Oh, no.
Casinopolis.
This city reminds me of Casinopolis.
You can slip up on this sort of stuff. You see the studio, you see the polis. If I was a kid, I would have called it Studiopolis.
Yes, instead of
Studio Polish.
I do find it very funny that they did not know about the name thing until they were already like partway through development.
Yeah, there is actually a real studio called Studiopolis that have worked with Sonic before.
Happy coincidence.
I think still to this day, the English Sonic cast records all of their lines for the new games.
Perfect.
But this level's really good.
Yes.
I really like this one. The first of the original stages. There are only 4 throughout the whole game, which sort of gave us a glimpse of maybe what Sonic Discovery was going to be when it was going to be more of an original Sonic game. But yeah, I really like this one. It's almost like a good future. Well, I wouldn't say good future because it's full of cameras and stuff, but it reminds you a little bit of like Spring Yard and things like that. Because
Yes,
I don't know.
yes.
It looks like it's like a city. It looks like as you get lower down into there, it looks like a lived-in city and stuff. And you're seeing like trains going by and whatnot. But this is a place dedicated to film, I suppose. I quite like
film
it.
and television, and just working in as many references to Sonic and Sega as physically possible. I see you, Streets of Rage, Pinkbot reference.
Oh yeah.
We love our Daytona car.
Club Spin. Oh yeah, it's true. It's just full of stuff.
Okay, I don't now I'm self-conscious. I don't know if I've ever said it correct. It's Studiopolis, right?
Yeah, there you go. You got it. You nailed it.
Studiopolis. Oh my god. Is there a Studiopolis like Iceberg somewhere of Sonic references with like the
I thought you were
popcorn
being
machine at the
sarcastic
top?
when you said it. Sorry.
No, I can't fucking say it.
Oh my god!
How am I supposed to say it?
I'm pretty sure it's Studiopolis.
Rhymes with
Studiopolis.
Metropolis.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Studiopolis.
Call it Studiopolis.
Hydrocity.
Oh, jeez. Ahem. Is there some kind of iceberg for the references on this stage that starts with like the Sonic popcorn machine at the top and all the way down at the bottom is like stuff I've probably never even heard of before?
If by iceberg you mean the bottom of a wiki page somewhere, then yes.
I do. So this level has amazing music, and I want to give a shout out to an artist on YouTube named Insane in the Rain Music, who makes wonderful, used to make wonderful jazz renditions and arrangements of video game music, and his rendition of this is excellent, and you should definitely all go listen to it.
definitely the track, I think, from Mania that has received the most play, you know, in the years since, the one that everybody identifies, to the point where it made it into Smash Ultimate. That's pretty rad.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I really love it.
It listen, like I said, it was one of the first tracks they ended up sharing, and let's say it made a strong first impression. That's for sure.
Yeah, like this definitely feels like the zone that kind of defined Mania for a lot of people, I think, and deservingly so. Like it feels like the full package.
Yeah, when this pops up in the anniversary symphony concert, God, the fact that Mania gets an entire suite is just, man, it's so cool. And I know, I'm pretty sure like T. Lopes was on Twitter when that was going on, just like, wow, I can't believe, you know, to hear like his tracks for this game like fully orchestrated and all is surreal and cool, and man, it's just good stuff. But yeah, I feel like the stage music for this is now like just baked into people's, like, when they think of classic Sonic. I mean, I have the little play set based on this stage that I have some of my little 2.5-inch Sonic figures on, and it's just cool, man.
It is.
This place, more than any of them, I feel like belongs with the classic games. Like, there's some really great original stages, but this one is just should have been a part of it, man. It's totally fits.
Yeah, it just like we talk about how this feels like a lost like Saturn Sonic game. Like the original stages, this one especially feels like, oh yeah, like this. Are we sure this wasn't just a cut stage that they just plopped right in here? And it's good stuff.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But it's also worth mentioning that this is the first stage in the game where we get a fight against one of the hard-boiled heavies who we've somehow not mentioned this whole time.
Right. Well, we mentioned the Egg Robos at the beginning.
Yeah.
They got Phantom Rubied, and then they got personalities, and here they are. They're like the new characters of the game, and they're just a bunch of cool robots.
Your new quirky mini boss squad, right there.
Yeah, they're quite great. This is the first time we fight against Heavy Gunner, who is a cop. That's the thing to point out, so you know that you've got to beat this guy's ass.
Twice in one episode, we got to use the music.
But yeah, it's one of those almost like Sonic Advance 2 style, like running bosses.
Yeah.
You know? I like this one a lot.
Yeah, you're constantly in motion, and the entire time they're firing missiles at you, but specifically the little bulbous blue ones, if you touch them, they redirect for some reason. Great technology. And go and hit Heavy Gunner himself. So that's kind of the whole strat. You just kind of run along the path, dodging the missiles you don't want to touch, and touching the ones you do.
Sorry,
I'm missile touch.
I'm looking at the little blurb for the Heavy Gunner from the Sonic Mania manual, and it says, a loose cannon that packs serious firepower. He often flies by in a helicopter to terrorize from above. And yeah.
It's pretty accurate.
Yep. I really like this one, too. I feel like this is a good intro to like how future heavy boss fights will be, but also like not too complicated. Like it's very pretty, and I like the little gag that like you do keep directing those missiles, but they keep hitting his little Egg Robo partners first, and then you see like, oh, I see how this is gonna work out, and yeah, it just feels really good to be like running at top speed the entire time, and I really like the heavies in general. Just cool, like, you know, something you just I never would have thought of in a million years on my own. Like, oh, take like the Egg Robos as a base, but make like this little elite squad with all their unique little personalities and gimmicks and stuff.
It's very cool, and like this stretch of the level is really good because you get the little boss battle, you beat it, you get to the goalpost, and then like as Act 2 starts up, the screens light up and Robotnik's face is on there, and it's like, oh, now you're in the studio itself, and it like, judging by the music, it feels like you're a part of a game show or something, and I love it.
I love the little newscaster Cluckoid with his big ol' eyes.
Yeah.
Giving you a heads up on what the next hazard is going to be.
Yeah, because once you get through this whole like stage, which is really great, lots of cool level gimmicks like Sonic turning into like electricity to go across these electric cables, and lots of little fun things as you're in the studio itself. You get to basically you're done with the stage, and now Dr. Eggman with the weather, because there's a big screen in the background, and it basically the forecast tells you about what the next attack pattern's going to be, and it's something weather related. This battle has like a different boss theme than the rest, and it will pop up for a few of them. I almost feel like it's like the eccentric bosses theme, which I quite like. There's a separate one.
Yeah, I love all the little effects. You know, the high winds. You have to grab the bar so you don't get thrown to the spikes. I mean, my favorite is the sunshine, which love that this game also incorporates the funniest things of where you just wonder, like, Eggman, you did not think this through, to where, you know, it jumps up to a ludicrous temperature and gets so hot that his Eggmobile starts floating down so you can get some hits in. And you have to stay under it so you're out of the direct light. It's a very cool gimmick.
Yeah, you stay in the shade while his bald head is taking in all the rays, just like directly from above him.
And when you beat the boss, there's that fun little reference, like the screen goes blank and you hear like the hint of the noise that would play during the Sonic 25th anniversary stream, where everyone hears the loud buzzing.
Where's that on the Iceberg?
That's on there somewhere.
Yep.
And the little 7/22/16 date at the bottom, which was the reveal date.
I'd love that.
That's also what reveals the next level, actually, because you see the flying batteries there. So, hey, we're going back to Sonic 3 Knuckles, and oh man, it's full of trash.
Yeah. I love. Doesn't the little scroll say like the return of the flying battery?
Right,
or something
flying
like
battery returns.
Yeah, that's Yep. This might be my favorite classic stage included in here, just because Flying Battery is really high up there for me in the original Sonic 3 and Knuckles as well.
Great stage. Like I said, when I say it's full of trash, I don't mean it's a terrible stage. No, it literally, like the original game had like all those egg capsules that would contain stuff like from the levels. It's almost like this is a Robotnik's supply deck, but it looks like he's also using it to clean up his mess. So there's lots of like Badnik parts and goal markers and things that are literally littered around the stage that you have to wade in at some point. Oh, it's great.
I know. I love how they incorporate that into the is it the Act 1 boss?
Yes.
Yeah, you get dropped down into a very like Star Wars garbage chute.
I was thinking,
Right.
Down to the trash compactor.
And then it brings to life like these Badnik parts, and you get like a tiny bit of a like, whoa, that's weird. Almost like zombie Badniks.
Trying to just piece together whatever scrap it can to just defend itself while the walls are slowly closing in on you.
It's very cool. It's not as bad as it sounds, honestly. It's pretty
We've been
good.
calling it trash, but it's good.
But someone's treasure.
Yeah, I like how it's kind of a take on the the original Flying Battery, like the little mini boss with the giant laser.
Right.
But just kind of like remixed in a different way. I love an Act 2 where here comes the new stuff, where you are going inside and outside this flying ship.
Outside.
Much more than the original, and that raging storm outside looks so good.
This is like, it starts being a bit more Wing Fortress and that, and I like sort of like combining, one of the recurring things is like combining elements of similar zones within the classic zones to almost make a sort of remix, and that's what you're seeing here. But yeah, you go out, like, not on the roof like you normally do, although you do go out there, but you're going out like on the side exterior of the ship, so of course like the winds are blazing and there's a storm and there's rain, and oh, it's so cool.
I really do feel like that's why even the classic stages that we've seen before feel so fresh, because they do not only have new elements, but do feel like combinations of other stages, just not like necessarily visually. Like, oh man,
including Badniks too. Like sometimes they'll mix and match Badniks to what fits. Like Green Hill had like the Bat Brains from Marble Zone in the cave areas. Like, it's really cleverly done.
I also appreciate that that the I guess windmills, turbines, are still a part of this as well. I mean, they're, I feel like they're iconic to Flying Battery, but the fact that they're still there, just because I really love the mechanic.
Oh, yeah, the big propellers.
Yeah. I just love the mechanic of like holding onto them and then just flying off and grabbing to another one. Like, it's simple, but it's fun for me.
Yeah.
And a little bit of wacky workbench when if you're unfortunate enough to end up at the bottom of the stage and you're fighting against those like electric generators run by moles, like the moles that would fly the flying battery. I just love like the mix and match of this. It's really good. But hey, Jake, I know you like those propellers. We'll get ready to use them quite a bit in the boss because that's this is where you finally fight against Eggette. Sorry, I mean the egg spider. To be fair, I can't shake that now.
Yeah,
looking at this boss.
once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Which that came from just like how Eggman sprite looks upside down, right? Yeah, the cute little like, oh, it looks like a funny little Eggman girl person. Oh, yeah, I remember that. That was a cool thing that went around. I remember social media, just people coming up with their own little designs and whatnot.
It's basically like the Ashley as a mouse thing that we've got going on right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Moushly.
It's a mouthful to say. But yeah, you just kind of end up doing the best you can with those little propellers, just kind of praying you fling them right into the spike walls that are just kind of lining the sides of this arena.
This is an inventive boss for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe it takes some getting used to, but it certainly beats the usual Eggman method, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think I might have, maybe the first time I ran up against this, I might have actually gotten a timeout because, it took a long time to explore the entire act, and then I was like, wait, I don't get it, so I can't damage it. Oh, the spikes. Wait, you got to hit it just right. Oh, no. But again, another one that once you get into a good pattern, like you get the hang of it. You can get like 2 to 3 hits on each cycle.
It just takes some getting used to, and working out yourself. Back when games didn't tell you everything you had to do. Oh god, I'm sounding old. So can you imagine the version of this I'm just imagining the version of this that's Sonic's like, I've got to get up on those propellers to fly right into Eggman.
you always default to that
Because
Sonic
I'm thinking
voice.
of 06, though,
Yes,
to be fair.
You're not even wrong.
I'm evading my taxes.
Anyway, if you're playing like the new version of this, you get the little hang gliders from Sky High Zone and fly off the flying battery into Press Garden. There's another original one, and we mentioned it's like the propaganda factory, and they really commit. Like for the first act, they really commit to the bit of like everything's about making papers, I suppose. So
Yeah.
it's a fun little level. It's the one that has what at this point is like the obligatory looping part of the stage where you've got to like work out how to get out of the loop, otherwise you're just going to be going down and down and down and down.
Yeah.
There's always one of those, at least one of those in a Sonic game, and this has that.
Yep, and this doubles as the snow level in Act 2 as well.
Yeah.
Which we've talked about, but it's a good one.
It's a real
Yes.
good.
Yep. I wanted to mention it earlier, but I'm glad I waited till now since we're actually at this act in this zone. We were talking earlier about like just how good the character animations and expressions specifically look, and I love how all the characters look when they get frozen in those ice blocks.
Again, that's another addition to the new version. It's like they always had that funny look on their faces, but one of the additions they made in like the patch, the free patch, was that their eyes would move in the direction where they get sent, and that's so funny.
Yeah, I love the color palette, both versions of this level. Just I feel like you don't see that a ton. Maybe I'm thinking of like, what is it, Spring Garden, Sonic 3. Sonic CD and Sonic 1 have some nice purples and pinks in some levels, but I feel like it wasn't until Press Garden that like you really saw that come back. But I just love the unique palette and it also, especially Act 2, like where you go into the forest to where it still looks like perfectly natural, and it's very pretty. This is one of my favorite visuals in the game for certain.
I was really surprised to see like Act 2 in particular has this sort of like Eastern vibe to it, this very like traditional Japanese vibe, and then I realized why they were doing that when you get to the boss of this stage. It's
Yeah.
really cool.
Heavy shinobi.
Because it's not enough to just reference classic Sonic stuff. They need to go to all these classic Sega things. So, yeah, Heavy Shinobi should have seen. It's right there, Shinobi. Lots of references to that game,
including taking sound effects directly from it.
Yeah,
I love that the official manual just straight up points out that the throwing stars that he uses are Asterons from Sonic 2.
Yep.
It's like, you know that if you look at them, but no, I just love the idea. No, that's it. Yes, you are correct.
I'm glad you mentioned that
Just
because I actually
verifying.
forgot which game they were from.
Yeah, as if you couldn't hate those things from Sonic 2 anymore. Ruin your time in Metropolis Zone. See, I can say Metropolis.
Metropolis.
sorry. You mean Metropolis? Sorry, Jeremy.
Grand Heil Zone.
Okay, no, again, silly. Not that we weren't already.
Who is on Hell and why does he have an island?
Wow. That one
one
caught
will
me
ever
off
know.
guard.
But you once you're done with this, you get Phantom Rubied out of this zone and to Little Planet because hey, it's Stardust Speedway. I love this place. But in the past though, so it's a little more low key. I quite like this. It's the as I put in the outline, it's the pastiest past that's ever passed.
That is great.
It's really it's in disarray, covered in vines and stuff, and full of statues and things. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yep, those giant chomping flowers, those legally distinct piranha plants.
I love that you got to bust open like the end of
Yeah.
the end of Act 3 capsules to get those, because yeah, you'd let free flowers in that one, and this one it's like, something wrong with the plants.
He's got to the plants. No.
I remember when we did our Sonic CD episode how I mentioned that one of my critiques against the game was just that it seemed like a lot of the levels just had really busy artistic design and aesthetic. But I really appreciate that for this Stardust Speedway for Act 1 and Act 2, like it's still kind of busy, but not in a way that like makes me feel either overwhelmed or distracted. Like I think just with a lot of things in this game, I think the balance is just right on this level.
Yes, I fully agree with that, and the little note you've put in the outline here that mentions it's a Sonic CD level that has been tweaked with like the stage disciplines from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and it just feels. I'm sorry, I keep saying this. It just feels really good.
Well, it feels right now. Like I love Sonic CD, but sometimes it's a bit of a mess to get around, and there's still plenty of chaos going on here because it's still got those weird little like routes and paths that you take where you're sprung around through little tunnels and things, but it feels a bit more ordered, and yeah, it all depends on what you want from the Sonic, but this feels like a good compromise. If you're going to have a Sonic CD level, make it so it's, you can at least work out where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the Act 1 boss that feels like it should have been in the original Sonic CD. It's based off of the little interlude you get from the Firefly Badniks right before is it the actual final boss in CD?
Yeah, it was from like Metallic Madness in the original, and you'd think that boss was going to be a big deal from how it was presented in like the animated cutscenes, but this actually lives up to that. I think it's pretty cool.
It's very cool.
Then you go into the future to get that.
That was very fun.
Which actually just takes you to the present.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I didn't
suppose
realize
if you're
that.
in the past, the future, the present to
Yeah.
us now would be the future.
Time's
Anyway,
relative.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
that was very cool. It was to see them recreate the transition cutscene from Sonic CD. They literally just have him run past the sign, just floating up into the big green energy background, and then just bam, time travel.
Yes,
That's how it works.
I really like that.
That's exactly how it works.
I don't think I caught that until this playthrough that like, oh yes, this is technically the present of Stardust Speedway. It's not the good or bad future.
These are great remixes by T-Lopes of both versions.
definitely.
Like the first one has this sort of like chill kind of that 90s vibe to it, and they were great, but they are lacking a lot of the samples that we would go into great detail as to we appreciated in the original soundtrack. But there'll be some where-wheres, you just gotta wait a little bit.
You get your fix in a little bit.
Act 2 is also very good for the exact same reason. Such a good remix of the visuals and elements of the original game, but with a more modern classic Sonic layout sensibility.
It's a little bit Marble Garden-y as well. Like I quite like that to it.
But then you make it to the end and destroy that Metal Sonic hologram, and then the robot himself shows up
with his own bespoke boss battle theme, which is, of course, the theme of Metal Sonic, Stardust, Speedway, Bad Future. When the where-wheres are back in full force, there's even a female where-where to add to the bunch. It's great, man.
Yeah, you sort of get into a multi-part boss battle with Metal Sonic, which this is one of the few things that changed significantly with the patch when Plus came out. It applies to, even if you don't have Plus, it just completely changes it no matter what, so...
Yeah, you can tell they wanted to fix this one. But I still think this is really good, like in either version, but yeah, it starts off basically like that Stardust Speedway sort of like race, kind of, except for he's coming back to attack you every now and then. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't super remember all of the differences, Steve.
The main
Can you
difference...
walk me through it?
The main difference is that at the very end of the fight, in the original version, it's a big wall of spikes that you have to avoid while you're trying to hit him. And in the new version, it's the Knuckles Chaotix inspired giant version.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew that it was mostly, I knew the big change was, yes, it's the giant transformation, but I didn't remember the original.
The second segment also is slightly different. He sort of slots into that, again, Knuckles Chaotic kind of style machine. He just kind of slots in up there. And the little silver Sonics from Sonic 2 8-bit, I believe. Those little guys are all popping out. And I believe the big thing was the intended way to do the fight was to, when they spin dash, you spin dash into them and hit them into Metal Sonic. But I think a lot of people had trouble with that, so what I noticed in my most recent playthrough is if you just destroy them, it shoots, basically you shoot a series of 4 energy balls just in diagonal directions, and they can hit Metal Sonic, so I think you're still able to do the old method, and I think it's faster to do that.
I did the old method when I was fighting it in my playthrough.
Yeah.
Same here.
It's just to make it so that people don't get really stuck on that bit.
Yeah.
And fair enough, they I guess they made that and they're saying, oh, people are going to get it, right? No, they didn't. Okay, I fix it. But I love that. I love like the tiny little Silver Sonic from Sonic 2 8-bit. I suppose he's technically a Mecha Sonic, but whatever. He's Silver Sonic to me. He's a funny little guy.
I can say that in the sound effects, the game files, all of his sound effects are refer to him as Silver Sonic. So
as they should.
If you want to take that.
Oh, I just love that little guy. And the sound effects are straight from the classic, the 8-bit games. I just love that. It's weird seeing him have like extra frames of animation and do like a little like rear back before sending out his little hook from his stomach. Oh man!
Oh, I know his funny little cartoon robot arm.
Oh, little man.
Also, there's like that whole thing. Like we mentioned, the references of like Knuckles Chaotix there, and of course there's there's Metal Sonics in tubes, almost like in Sonic Adventure, or maybe even in the Sonic OVA, because there's the big round like generator thing shaped like Robotnik Space that reminds me of that. So, lots of lovely little references there. Oh man, you're gonna get a lot of those.
I love how this is one of the times where Eggman is just like throwing the Phantom Ruby at something, and he just tosses it to Metal Sonics and just say like, well, let's see what happens.
I do like to think canonically he was just like, oh man, the first time we tried that was really wrong, so let's do a different version. Here, take this. So he's like canonically retconned it with the Phantom Ruby, so now you got a new version of the boss.
I'd love at the end when the Metal Sonic blows apart, the Ruby falls, and that little roller badnik is just like, nope, you can't have it, Sonic. Even if you walk over there and You're like, oh, I'll end the game right here.
No.
Also, all of that like last stage of the battle, like regardless of which version it is, you got that that low poly version of the Robotnik statue from Sonic CD in the back, it's like turning around slowly in the background. I love it. It's really good. And if you're playing on the Plus version or the Plus patch version, you'll get another little zone transition that shows you like sneaking up on Robotnik while he's showing off a giant mech of some sort on the screen. You're like, oh, what could that be? But then you get Phantom Rubied away to... Wait a minute, where are we going after that? Oh, Hydrocity! There it is.
Yep.
Or Hydrocity, if you prefer. They still do not... Even in this version of the game, they don't put the gap in between Hydro and City.
Hydro means water. City means city.
Hydro.
If there's no gap, that's all I'm
My
saying.
fair lady.
Yeah, maybe.
I may be a Hydrocity truther here. I don't know. There's
Oh, you're one of those,
not a
are
gap. That's all I'm saying.
So Hydro City.
This is a bit of a fan favourite. I think lots of people really go back to this, mainly because of the music, I think, but also it's a fun level. But Act 1, like we mentioned before, Act 1 is a bit more of your standard water level than what Hydrocity actually ended up being, so you're doing lots of, like... Especially if you go down on the lower level, you're doing a lot of, like, trudging around, and there's, like, the bubbles from the Sonic 2 8-bit, I think.
Yeah, from Aqua Lake Zone. And then, you grab onto the hook and it changes the water level, and my inner Ocarina of Time fan just sort of tenses up for a moment.
But you know what? They did it. They made a water level in a Sonic game that is actually fun to play and is easier to get through. Especially because those oxygen bubbles like that are scattered around a lot. You don't have to wait what feels like 5 minutes just for one bubble to come by. Like, it's a lot more frequent that you can actually breathe underwater. Thank goodness.
Definitely more generous, yeah.
I know. I really like the bosses in this version of Hydrocity.
That first boss.
Yes. I almost feel like, God, that first boss is such another just like out of nowhere like special thing.
So silly, too.
And even the second one, like, which wouldn't be my favorite, but this time around, I guess because I knew it was coming, like, I really appreciated, again, like you said, like, the bubbles to keep you from drowning if you don't have a water shield are everywhere. Like, to go all the way back to, like, well, they're Sonic fans. They know. But yes, the Act 1 boss where you drop down into the
These
the
are
Eggman
machine in reverse.
Yeah.
Because this is the Act 2 boss in Act 1, but you're playing as Sonic, so Robotnik for some reason is laying bombs around Hydrocity while in his hilarious little scuba suit.
I love it.
Swimming around looking very stylish. And then you get to suck him up, so to speak, with the machine, and God, it's almost like this moment of, haha, how do you like it?
I just love the, like, even at his arguably most powerful, where he is, bending the fabric of reality, that Eggman is still willing to get his hands dirty in the trenches himself, putting on his little flippers. Yeah. With his little bombs that all have his face on them. Are they the bombs from the intro to Knuckles' path in Sonic 3 and Knuckles? The one that drops right next to him?
I think that's not quite spherical like these ones, but it's similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the coloring made me think of those.
And then after, and basically Act 2 is what you'd expect from Hydrocity. Great music. Lots of zipping around underwater, but isn't the fun, speedy underwater level. And then you mentioned this, the Act 2 boss is because it's technically the Act 1 boss of the original game, but you start off with this whole setup of yes, you spend most of it underwater, setting off little bombs to fire back at Robotnik and also give yourself an air bubble every time. It's a cool... there are lots of non-traditional bosses in this. Whether or not you like that is your mileage may vary, but I thought this one was pretty cool.
It's a nice touch, just they were coming up with new ideas, clearly. As much as they wanted to stick with the classic formula, they also found their own ways to put their own little stamp on it, and I think that's, especially with the boss fights, some of these are really, really fun things they cooked up.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting, but I do wonder how much impact those bosses would have on somebody who has never played the classic games before and doesn't necessarily realize that, oh, this is a specific, inversion on a thing that came before.
Well, that's Sonic Mania, isn't it?
I mean, that's true.
It's like it's for the crazy people.
That is kind of the rub with Sonic Mania, to where I mean, I probably would at the end of the day recommend like someone who has maybe never played a classic Sonic game, that Mania probably is a good place to start, because I feel like there is a lot of good trial and error as far, we mentioned learning curves to where and Mania is pretty generous with, like it still uses a life system, but has like plenty. I usually like end a run with like 40 or 50 lives and a couple of continues. Anything that is full of like references to previous material, like if you aren't familiar, maybe you don't get those aha moments. But because even thinking about the first part of Act 2, where you are like getting pushed in this huge water current and hitting these little bombs, like I feel like the game does do a good job of letting you know that, like, oh, the Eggman robot is following all the movements you make, so you hit that bomb and then get out of its way and then try and move the screen so that Eggman like gets hit by the bomb, and then once you make it to phase 2, like that's kind of like self-explanatory as far as like how the original one goes. It's like, whoop,
Yep, it's just Act 1 again.
here he comes down from the side, get out of the way. So yeah, I would be interested to see, like, I mean, are there any Sonic fans left who went into Mania without like knowing the elements that it was drawing from?
I'm going to say anybody born after a certain year, yes. As much as I don't like to acknowledge those people exist because it makes me feel old.
I know they do. They did push this game once the physical copies came out. Was it one of the bundles? I know there was there a Sonic Forces and Mania bundle?
There was
Sure.
a Forces Mania bundle, and there was a Forces Mania Team Sonic triple pack.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what the one I was.
I have
thinking
a,
of. So yeah,
I have a double pack on the Switch that has Mania and Team Sonic Racing.
Yeah, that was the other one I was thinking of. I thought there was even somewhere out there, was it Mania or Forces, but a Monkey Ball
was gonna say.
bundle?
With Forces, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, Sega was definitely pushing this game, like, just to everybody when they could. God, speaking of zones we may have mentioned that were based on cut things, after Hydrocity, you get dropped into the desert.
Yeah, it's Mirage Saloon Zone. I really
One
like
of
this
the very first new stage we were ever shown.
It's more or less like the vibe of this is based on like Sand Shower, Desert Dazzle, or what people would believe erroneously to be called Dust Hill Zone from the Sonic 2 prototype, where it is that desert level, but they also like gave it like a spaghetti western makeover, and yeah, it's really cool. It's really yellow. But the first act is different depending on who you're playing as. Like, if you're playing as Sonic and just about anybody else, you're dealing with, and it's weird to say they decided to do a sky chase here. Because the whole, almost the whole act, except for one brief part, is taking part on top of the tornado, and that's interesting. Sky Chase is not by any means my favourite Sonic zone of the past, but this is a pretty good one, I think, at that.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's the perfect length. That's for sure. Before it dumps you on the train for the last little bit before the boss.
Well, the train is like sort of like a reprieve. Like, yeah, you're zipping around, you're fighting against all these like new versions of like existing enemies from Sky Chase Zone, including like an armadillo version of those turtloids, which I thought is pretty cute.
Yeah.
Then you get dropped on Robotnik's little choo-choo train as he's literally driving it. Toot toot, Sonic Warrior. Then you just You have that little part of platforming before you're sent back onto the plane. You're shot out of like a little pistol onto the plane again for like what feels like almost a Space Harrier style battle. It's not quite like that same gameplay style, but seeing like this caterpillar, this giant caterpillar come at you like in various little segments.
Yeah, I can see why you would make the comparison.
Yes, that's what it makes me think of, because they're obviously referencing lots of Sega history here. So
It
You would,
fits
cool.
if they were, you know?
Speaking of references, I don't think this was an intentional reference, but there is an Archie Sonic issue that also has a giant caterpillar acting as like a runaway train, and I couldn't help but think of this when you fight this after jumping off of a train, fighting this giant caterpillar.
Depending on what issue it is, it may or may not be a reference, but
Oh, I mean, I highly doubt it.
if you mention the name Mike Gallagher, probably not.
It was Archie Sonic issue 119, which is
Okay.
quite quite a far ways back. I think it was written by Benny Lee or Carl Ballers. So I just remember it being a pretty cool thing. You know, it's literally an enormous speed rail caterpillar. I think it's referred to as like a super badnik. But yeah, probably not an intentional reference, but I thought it was.
It's funny that happened twice.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Sonic almost getting killed on the train. Perish the thought.
No.
Ah.
Also, by the way, if you're playing as Knuckles, it's a whole different act.
Yeah.
It's basically a Knuckles-specific act with a different bit of music and lots of climbing sections. It's nice to have this sort of like this little nod to classic Knuckles in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, where he gets his own little bit to do. But it is very funny that he gets knocked off the plane to get to it.
Yes, not to read too much into it, but yeah, Sonic and Tails are just like, whoops, bye, Knuckles.
It's cool that Knuckles gets a lot of his own routes like throughout the entire game.
Yeah. I mean, they played Sonic. They're Sonic 3 and Knuckles fans.
Yeah.
Of course, they're going to do little things like that. Good for Knuckles. Get something to do.
This is the stage to where I think we were on our Sonic CD episode talking about like a lot of the prototype content and like the cut stuff and stuff that like was being thrown around for the 2011 remake. Like, it sure seems like almost all of those ideas just found their way into Sonic Mania, so I don't feel too bad about thinking like, oh, you know, we never got like the concept of a better true final boss for Sonic CD, because it feels like that is Mania's final boss without the final Eggman boss before you get all the Chaos Emeralds, and like this level as well, which seems I love that it is not only a combination of like cut previous classic Sonic desert levels, but also has like some, now hold on, someone gonna correct me, Sandopolis elements as well. Did I say that one right?
No, you got it.
Okay. I can't fucking believe that.
Sorry, I've ruined this for you forever.
No, yeah, I'll lab saying the names correctly for the next time, because now I know
There's
there's
to get these made-up names correct. Sorry, Jeremy.
I know now I know that there are other episodes where I've said it wrong, and no, it's fine.
Well, after the big old caterpillar, certainly an introduction, I don't know, or a transition, I don't know if anybody was expecting.
Yeah, so aside from the fact the fact that the goal marker lands on Heavy Magician's head on top of their hat, just funny. Then, out of nowhere, depending on your personal playthrough, you get one of 3 special cameos here. It could either be Fang the Sniper / Knack the Weasel, or Bark the Polar Bear, or Bean the Dynamite.
Team Hooligan
since
lives
you heard
on.
Link to the... Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Those 3 being here and as technically part of the same unit is just... Now that feels like an Archie reference.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just something that Archie started, like in the public consciousness. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I ended up being spoiled about Fang. So when I got Bark, I was completely confused. And also surprised that Fighters was getting a reference at all. And it just... Is Bark? Yeah. Hello?
I was going to say, that was another surprise that they kept hidden. Like, when I got to play Mania at E3, I got to play Mirage Saloon Act 2, and there was no boss at the end. It was just the goalpost. So that was another one of those things that they, I think, did a good job of keeping under wraps right up until the last moment.
Yeah, because this is a great little stage, lots of fun little gimmicks. It's just full of personality, but you do see those, like, throughout. You do see those little wanted posters, which, hey, for the first time in generations, this is for once they're like, oh no, they're actually in this one.
Yeah.
It's not just it's just an nod
It's
to
not
it.
an empty threat.
Well, kind of, in a way, because the boss for this one is Heavy Magician, and she has the. And by the way, these characters do have assigned genders, so hey, that's something worth
Yeah,
noting.
she and
But
the next one are the only ones assigned female.
Yeah, and they basically she does this little parlor show where she transforms using Phantom Ruby powers, I suppose, into the three hooligan characters. Makes for a fun little battle and fun little reference to classic Sonic, I suppose. Yeah, I like it.
Me too.
Yeah. I really love just the whole design of I'm sure there's like a proper name, but yes, like the little saloon doors / like stage that she goes behind to transform. Just, it's very cool. It's not just it's not just curtains. It's like its own special thing. Like, God, we're going to have to pick our favorite, like, hard-boiled heavies. And like, this one might be mine. This fight anyway. I just love how it looks. It's Bark Bean and Fang. Like, what are those guys doing here? Which, if you want to read into the lore, like, it's not really them, but like, who gave Heavy Magician like this idea? Was this just like, was this just like her own joke, like playing on Sonic and Friends? Or I can't remember if in like the IDW classic comics Afterlife, does it ever get acknowledged? Like, do they ask Fang and the guys, like, what was up with that? And they're like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Maybe it's a thing where like the wanted posters were already there and she saw them. She's like,
Yeah, maybe.
Oh.
Like, from a continuity standpoint, like in-universe standpoint, I don't know. But it makes perfect sense to at least put, like, Knack the Weasel, Fang the Sniper in this Western level. Like,
Yeah.
it just feels right. Even if he's still using his little crappy cork gun, bouncing on his tail. That's great. They've got their own little boss phases and attack patterns. It's great. So, once you're beating this boss, you get sent off to a level none of us asked for, expected, but we got anyway. Hope you like Oil Ocean Zone from Sonic 2, out of nowhere. Because I was surprised by this when I first played it.
Yeah, same here.
I was surprised. Can't say I was especially happy about it.
Not me. Yeah, it's a bit of a slog of a level in the original. It's alright, yeah, I think it's alright. It's, here it is. It's well presented, and I can see why they decided to bring it back, because they wanted to have a little fun with it. It was more or less the idea of, look at this thing in the game. What if we added this? Because I didn't mention it, but in Flying Battery, you've got like the electric shields now let you get magnetized up to the ceiling, which I thought was a cool touch. And in this one, oil plus fire shield. Make your own conclusions as to that, how that goes.
Fires everywhere.
Yeah, I do. I mean, Oil Ocean is also probably not my favorite Sonic 2 zone. I do love all of the changes and additions and extra gimmicks added to it in this game. Like the fire shield, I like how in Act 2, especially, it's a new spin on the pull the levers to keep the ghosts away in Sandopolis, except you are pulling the little handles to keep the temperature down so you can continue breathing and not lose rings and die.
Yeah, that's always nice.
Boy, the anti-pollution themes in Sonic presented here as Sonic accidentally causes a massive flaming fireball and it basically sets an oil rig alight. Whoops.
Eco-terrorism.
Getting back to his Sat AM roots.
This is rather stressful, actually, though. To be perfectly honest with you, like when you can't see what's going on, and like the smoke is so thick that Sonic's rings are going down because he can't breathe properly. And then sometimes you have to dive into a submarine of all things to get away from it, which are based on like the boats from like what was the name of the level in Knuckles Chaotix? Marina something or other.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's another one that was lost on me. I never made it that far in Chaotix.
Marina, okay, it was Marina Madness, of course it is. I didn't want to assume it was madness, but yeah. This is a very difficult level to get around, but it's we're getting into the later part of this game. It's a real challenge. It's all right. I was what I would have asked for or even expected, but we got it, and it's a fun little twist.
I appreciate the extra, I wouldn't call them skips, because I mean, they are intentional, but there are a few, like when you're sliding down the little oil slicks, you can get lots of extra speed with a drop dash or a fire shield dash, and end up like on the very, very, very top. And also, like, just like the original level, there are several places where if you are brave enough to go underneath the oil, you can skip some sections as well. Which is, I mean, that's just neat. Like, that's just staying true to the spirit of the level and adding new places in this Mania version. I love the look of the Act 1 boss, even though his startup before he actually starts doing things to you is so long that I almost always get 6 hits in before he can even bust out his giant wrench. But I love this, this little funny maintenance bot guy. He's got overalls on.
It is the most mean bean machine looking character design in this game.
Yeah. It's like a much more like casual looking version of the guy with the axe in Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
Right, I think that was the main visual inspiration for this guy, but he's just a guy trying to keep everything in order, and then you ruin the machinery and cause a massive outbreak of fire, and yeah. So Sonic is the true enemy in this situation. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, just like all those maintenance workers who died on the Death Star, was he truly innocent? Oh,
you
man.
just make me think of Clerks again, sorry.
Oh, yeah, that is where that's from, isn't it? I know it's pretty tough. I do love the look of the giant Octus boss in Act 2.
I think a lot of people's playthrough ended here on this boss because it's mean. I'm fine with it. It's kind of difficult. It's the ultimate realization of the original Oil Ocean boss.
Yeah.
Big old Mega Octus they call it, and it's giant. It's like a submarine / tank thing that Robotnik's in, and plus it's got all these other gimmicks that are trying to kill you, like the lasers and the Lava Reef mini boss, whatever those guys are on chains. It's a lot at once.
That said, if you are playing as Tails and have a certain someone following you, you can cheese that fight super duper easy.
No, that's true.
I think if you've got Sonic, I think this is a case where the drop dash comes in handy, because the arms will usually pull the platforms down, and then the main body of the big octopus will pop up like pretty far away. But I think if you charge up a drop dash, you will launch yourself across the screen and usually get in a couple of good hits. Also a good boss, like you said, mention Tails. If you're Sonic and you got Tails following you, and you can manage to manipulate him into also getting over there, like you can score like bonus hits as you both bounce off the top of this thing. Just be careful, don't fall down into the oil and get sucked down. You gotta hop right back up.
Yeah, bit of a pain, but if you can play classic Sonic, you'll probably be all right. So I think that's where a lot of maybe that is a case of like newbies having a little difficulty because of not knowing what to do in these situations, which is understandable. Not everyone has this stuff written into their brain's chemistry the same way some of us do. And once again, if you're playing the plus patch, you end the stage on a submarine, and that submarine learns how to fly to take you to the next level, which is a very creative zone transition.
They make it work, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that takes you to Lava Reef, which we just briefly mentioned. Yeah, this one was a surprise until like the last day, and it was some people noticed, hey, wait a minute, on that animation they just released, I see Lava Reef on one of those giant rings. Oh no, Lava Reef! So yeah, if you like that stage, because one of the most cinematic zones in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, yeah, it's back to its old tricks. Quite like this one.
This is another one where it feels like the acts are both like combinations of multiple levels together, and I especially like that Act 2 is it's hidden palacey like the original, especially if you're playing as Sonic. But I love all of the, like, I guess it's abandoned, like, excavating equipment and whatnot. And they add the chain link fences in the foreground. And it's really cool. Yes, this is the one where you can also see, like, oh, that's not the Death Egg like in the original game. That's the little planet hanging out in the background. Because Rotro.
I kind of like that Act 1 even has like holes in the ceiling, almost like from when the Death Egg was there, so you can see the outside now. So you see like, oh, there's lava on the outside too. And yeah, just seeing like as time goes by, instead of seeing the Death Egg like slowly coming closer into view, there's the terraformed little planet. So something's happened since we were on there last.
Yeah, and I do like how much of Quartz Quadrant from CD they brought into Act 2 as well, with the like reversible conveyors and stuff.
Yeah, great. Like, just a great bit of like using level gimmicks from other ones. The Metallic Madness giant boots, mech boots that you can walk across. Bringing in the Rexons from Hilltop Zone. It's just, it all comes together, I think. Yeah, it's really cool, and the music's great, especially in Act 2, where T-Lopes gets real inventive with that. Makes it sound like a Western Sonic CD track, I think, at this point. It's real good, real good.
I like how this lava reef feels bigger and more complex as far as the original goes, but a lot of the traps and badnik placements feel less mean, if that makes sense. I remember original Lava Reef just having lots of hidden spikes, and especially those exploding badniks that you can't kill, you just wait for them to explode. I feel like those were spread so close together in the original, and again, just an example of, like, you know, still very challenging and still fun to make its way through in Mania, but more refined placements for lots of stuff.
That's generally the vibe, isn't it? Fixing that sort of stuff, like refining it for the modern day. I like it.
So we have something in our show notes about how the final boss of this zone is different depending on who you're playing as. Would anybody like to care to take the reins on that? Because I only did it with Sonic and Tails.
Oh, that's fair. Well, I mean, you can probably talk about, like, the Sonic and Tails boss is, like, it's going to be a hard-boiled heavy boss no matter who you're playing as, but it's Heavy Rider if you're playing as anyone other than Knuckles. You're going to be fighting up against this fella.
And her loyal partner, Jimmy the Motobug.
And Jimmy. Yep, nice sort of lovely little reference to the sadly dearly departed Polygon Jim, the creator of the Motobug in Sonic 1 fan hack. So who had, like, as to get around would have, like, this telescoping wheel, and that's present here in the loyal steed of Heavy Rider in Jimmy. Lovely little Motobug design who zips around the place super fast.
Yeah, it's hard not to default to, like, oh, this is my favorite just because of the presentation. It is just a fun boss in general because of the how she will change direction and use the rails and the track in the back, and the little fire goes off, and the sound effect, the yay, you know,
little Evil Knievel show stuff going on. I love it.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, the background, like, the platform you're on is raising into the air the entire time as well.
Yeah, if you're playing on, like, the patched version, like, in the original, it would stay stationary, but I'm pretty sure this feels like the original plan because it's moving up and you slowly start seeing Little Planet, like, really come into focus here in the background to transition. It's cool. It's a great, like you said, great presentation. Lots of fun, and like when you I love that when you beat the boss and she falls off, like Jimmy just like revs up and is like, "Well, I'm out of here." It's great. Also, if you're playing as Knuckles, you get to actually fight against Heavy King, like the leader of the hard-boiled heavies, because you go to Hidden Palace Zone from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but it's like that's also been like done up with like machinery in the background, and you get to go up against the now inert Super Emeralds and the Master Emerald as presented in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and you have a nice little I think inspired by Knuckles' final boss in Sonic and Knuckles battle, where
Yeah.
Heavy King tries to take the Master Emerald and powers up on it and stuff, and it's a fun little one. Only Knuckles has like this fun little cutscene
yes.
of what would be a recurring gag. What is a
yes.
recurring gag?
Yeah, like that is
It
that
would've
was
been
straight,
classic
that was
Sonic.
straight out of the Mega Drive comic right there.
Yeah, from the Mega Drive Archie miniseries that Knuckles has these like poorly drawn little memories of like what happened in Sonic Mania Knuckles where Eggman tried to take the Master Emerald. It's very funny. And he's like, "Rrr."
From the American official Sega store, which I have my problems with, but I do have a color changing coffee mug that when you put hot liquid in it reveals Knuckles having those funny thought bubbles that is based on this game and the Sonic Mania adventure short. It is, yes, very cute.
That's very good.
It's a fun little battle. It's just, I just like that it's there. I like that Knuckles got this little thing. I don't think he has any more of these sort of like Knuckles only parts, so this bit was good. But I think that takes us to Metallic Madness Zone, because you saw the terraformed little planet, so here it is. It's weird, the final level of Sonic CD is now the penultimate level here, the second to last, and yeah, I wasn't expecting this one either. I wasn't expecting anything else from Sonic CD, but here it is, and it's more scrap-brainy than it even was before. And yeah,
I think I really enjoy this version of Metallic Madness, maybe even more than the original Sonic CD version, just because this seems like the perfect mix of like extra new stuff and streamlining the layout to where it's just more fun to play.
they really expand on the level gimmicks that were there, and like using the little seesaws to actually send you, like you've been in the background before, and they still do that a little bit, but you go way far in the background here, and so you're like a tiny little sprite zipping around the back of the stage. It's clever stuff. I quite enjoy it.
Definitely gave me some retro DKC vibes. Not retro as in old school, but retro as in studios.
Yeah.
I know there's one or two. I definitely remember a few levels there, at least one, where you basically have the same gimmick where you're jumping back and forth between the foreground and background layers, and there's a really cool effect, and it's also very cool in this one.
Gosh, off the top of my head, why can't I remember the Act 1 boss?
The Act 1 boss is an interesting case because it's the final zone from Sonic 1.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's another just like, what a surprise, but also like fits this kind of perfectly. And I love the little extra, the little extra bit at the end where everything's falling apart and Eggman's just like, ah!
Yeah, he's just throwing stuff against the wall. It's awful. Yeah, and that part, even though it's frantic as like the cylinders are popping up and down from the ceiling and the floor, it's actually a bit easier because you're not having to wait for like the electric bolts to attack you.
Yeah.
You're just having to like, okay, now I can hit him with a lot more frequency. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's one of those that, again, just reading into it, reading into the lore too much, that like I assume that Eggman is controlling most of these like mishmashes of old machines like himself with the power of the Phantom Ruby, and just love thinking like, oh, I know what I'll do. This didn't work the first time, but now I'll put it on this level. Metallic Madness Factory. He'll never see it coming.
Oh, he's going to be so surprised when it happens. I can't wait to see the look on his face.
Oh, I'm not going to change the actual machine.
I'll add an extra piston just because of widescreen, but other than that, I'll mess it off.
In Act 2 of Metallic Madness, I feel like I've heard people go back and forth on it, but I really enjoyed the shrink ray.
Oh, yes.
I mean, like, there wasn't as much of it in the original game as you see it here. I feel like it's great because the main reason being you get a tiny little character.
He's so cute.
The boss is so interesting because it is another out of nowhere that it's a giant flying like gacha coin toy machine but it does remind me very much of any of the bosses where you have to like get rid of the bubble shield or like the shadow fake Eggman robots from like Sonic 2 or the reprise of that in Sonic 3 with Mecha Sonic, except it's tiny little toy versions of old Eggman robots and little robot Amy's that use the giggle sound clip from Sonic CD that will hug you and explode.
This boss is interesting because there's an achievement for getting all of the prizes out at once without destroying any of them, and that is surprisingly tricky to do.
Yeah. You have to destroy them all before the boss ends too. You can defeat Eggman and you have to clean those up. I think it's pretty cute. I do agree that it comes out of nowhere and it's like, okay, sure, but it's a very cool boss. I gotta say, I do kind of feel bad that this is the only reference that poor Amy gets in the game proper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, fast forward, and I feel like they're finally making good on that by making her playable in Sonic Origins, but that is probably the one thing that I wish they would have done. Like, I love Ray and Mighty. That is so cool to see them back, but you couldn't have thrown my girl Amy in there too. Needed a couple more years to come up with the right moveset.
Guess not. It's fine. By the way, that boss is actually a visual reference to a Chaotix boss. I think it's the Amazing Arena boss.
Oh yeah,
It's a little bit like this
neat.
fella that I've just posted. There's a little sprite sheet for. So, lots of references all around.
Yep, and Chaotix had its own like crane game, arcade mechanic as well.
But it is a bit weird having that at the end of Metallic Madness.
Yeah.
Luke, you mentioned earlier there's an achievement for, and that reminded me. This is another 3DS and Vita question for us to discuss real quick. I noticed while I was playing that there is actually a not trophy, but just like in-game achievement support. In there. Was that the same for you when you were playing on 3DS?
it was. Yes.
Okay. So that actually makes me wonder, like, does Mania just in general have its own, like, in-game achievements? Or I wonder if that's specific for these modded versions.
I believe that you will still get the pop in, like, the Switch version as well.
Okay. Interesting.
I think you just got, like, your regular ones, like, aside from that. Yeah, in the Switch one, but otherwise you're just getting your typical trophies slash achievements, depending on what you're playing on.
It's the same achievements no matter which version, but obviously, Switch doesn't have an achievement system, so it's just, like, a little pop to let you know that, yeah, you did the thing. You set the bridge on Green Hill on fire with the fire shield.
One of the fun ones I got was playing as Knuckles in Flying Battery, and I was gliding, and I went like in one window and out another that were like right next to each other, and I got an achievement for window shopping.
Yep.
And
I know the one you're talking about.
It's really cool.
There's one for like getting a triple chain in Puyo Puyo, which is how I taught myself like how to do very, very basic Puyo strategies, just to always go for those 3 chains. If nothing else, those are relatively obtainable, and they'll make you a little bit of progress against the other guy.
You got to go for the yeehaw.
That's Metallic Madness. Again, no zone transition in the very first one, but a nice little zone transition if you're playing the modern version, where you move over and you can see it in the background, but the lightning goes off and Tails is scared, like in the OVA. You remember that?
We all know. He's afraid of lightning.
I'm afraid of lightning. And then that brings us to Titanic Monarch. It's okay. I can understand that initial reaction to it. It's a bit of a slog, regardless of which act you're going against.
It's an even bigger slog when you're doing the don't lose any rings achievement.
Oh, I remember that one. Oh, I was just about to say, like, I actually like this one. But remember trying to pop that trophy, and oh boy.
Man.
I will say off the bat, it is a bit of a slog. I would also say what final Sonic Zone usually isn't. And I do at least like how, and again, there is a learning curve. I like how Act 2 like breaks it up as far as like instead of a huge puzzle labyrinth, like God, I remember I was just talking about, I think it was our Death Egg episode, about how by the time you get to Death Egg Act 2 and you've ended up on the ceiling for the half dozenth time, you're like, I get it. I like how Titanic Monarch mixes it up with its it focuses more on its unique gimmicks than like making you like, you know, spend almost 10 minutes through a whole level. Once you get the hang of the layout, I feel like this might be like, you know, my favorite classic style final zone because it doesn't overstay its welcome.
Yeah.
Depending on like how you know your mileage on vertical levels in Act 1 is, because like we were just talking about Egg Rocket not too long ago, and here's another one of those of mainly going up, which is unusual. Yeah, good luck holding right on this one, because won't get you nowhere. It's big, and I do like the progression in the background of seeing like more and more of the giant Titanic Monarch mech, and as we mentioned in our Sonic CD episode, lots of like the visually it resembles the never finished the final Fever boss for the Sonic CD remake with the little flags and stuff. But it's cool. It uses some classic level gimmicks as well to get you up, and I like it, but it does take a while, man. And I suppose that's part of like the achievement of feeling like you've gotten somewhere is a long level. But yeah, this one is like Act 1 alone is a lot.
I really like the unique badniks to this level as well. Like, not only do you have the aforementioned like egg robos just running, I mean, you think they're going to be like little taxis, and then they just slam into the wall.
Yeah, they're just crash test dummies apparently.
Yeah, but I love the you know, the little pig badniks with the tossing the bombs and the
ball hogs.
Yes, the ball hogs, and whatever you call the like crazy missile launcher like homing on you with this laser net. Oh, those guys are such a unique threat, and just got a great look.
Yeah.
Can be a real pain in the butt if you're not paying attention.
But once you get to the top and you fight against a nice little remix of the Death Egg Act 1 from Sonic 3 and Knuckles mini boss. I think they call this one the Crimson Eye. It's nowhere near as threatening as the original one, which I feel like traumatized me a little bit with that stage. But it's still fun. I like the way it uses an elevator and uses gravity against you.
I believe there's an achievement for beating it as Knuckles, and that is no small feat.
Oh yeah.
Boy doesn't have hops, you know.
Yeah, I love that boss. Put it in everything. Or, you know, not really. What was the we were just talking about it shows up in those the Sonic X comics, and we're like, hey, it's that guy again.
Just a big eye. Tried to say that on that big egg.
Not quite.
But anyway. Then there's Act 2, and this is, again, different. Because there's definitely no left to right on either of these, really. Like, I suppose it's to start off with, but this one's like a non-linear level. Once you get into it, and once you're inside, like, what feels like their secret base / cathedral? Because it's got like all those like stained glass windows in the background. It's kind of interesting. This one can give people nightmares, I feel like, if you don't know your way around.
Yep, you do make it to that center area and then have 4 like branching paths, and you have to make it through each one of them to unlock the portal to the boss of the area. And it does have a learning curve, because I feel like this feels like a truly unique thing. Like, I do not remember very many classic or even like modern 2D Sonic levels where it's like you had to do this. Like there's some I feel like it has shades of like the teleporters from Sky Sanctuary that can take you to different paths in the levels. But yeah, this really does feel like a unique thing, like not specifically from a Sonic game. And I understand like Mania is a new game, but like other 2D Sonic games, I have now played it dozens of times, so I am also talking from like, but I know how it goes. I definitely remember the first time going through, like, I probably got a timeout and like had to start over, and I was like, okay, I get what it's trying to corral, the paths it's trying to corral me in. I see how this works now. Which, I would say is okay. It's okay not to be good at a part of a game right away.
It's definitely threatens to like time you out if you're not playing with the time limits turned off. You're gonna struggle a little bit with the times on here, especially considering instead of like having like bottomless pits most of the time, it just has that sort of phantom mist which sort of like teleports you back to the top of the level, which is a bit more forgiving, but it can also be really annoying if you keep falling in there and not sure where you're supposed to go.
Yeah, I think it's the large area with the it's like the 7 or 8 like giant purple energy balls that you spin around that I remember just like, what do I do here? Do I fall? Okay, I fell again. Well, and it's, again, you just got to know just the right path to take.
And I think that leads you to, once you've like, you beat all 4 of them, you get the portal, and you end up in the final boss. Well, the quote-unquote final boss of most characters' runs. Called the Phantom Egg. It's really cool, actually. I quite like this original boss.
Yes, it is God, it's so cool. It is like it almost looks like a big, like, some kind of engine, but it is also a mech suit that Eggman is in, and he is hopping around with these tethers, and it's so cool. I love again, maybe an intentional reference, maybe not, but the Titanic Monarch alert screens that are in the back the whole time also look like the computer screens from Evangelion as well.
I mean, you can't help but think that.
It's basically, there's a lot of stages to this, because you're going in between, like, attacking the actual mech suit that he's in, which is fully Phantom Ruby powered, and then, like, being, like, grabbed away by phantom hands to phantom versions of the hard-boiled heavies. Well, not all of them, but the non-heavy king enemies in little, like, sections that you can use to maybe farm rings and also, like, try not to die. They're quite cool as well.
took me a few times this time because I definitely got killed by the Phantom Heavies a few times when I was like, okay, well, I'll get some rings back, and nope, they got me. I really like this boss. I love that it's you can play it very safe and only scored one hit each time, but again, I guess it is a little bit easy mode. If you're Sonic with Tails, you can again get it just right, and once he drops his shield, score about 5 hits. If you can get Sonic and Tails bouncing on top of him. You'll probably lose your rings, but as long as you grab one, and you can I think this time I managed to only get grabbed twice by the heavies. Oh man, it's a very cool boss. It's one of those you feel so good about getting good at defeating it.
I've seen footage of people able to avoid the hands and stuff and continue on, but I have never been able to do that. And the part of this boss that gives me the most trouble is when you get transported to the heavy shinobi who does the
oh yeah
gosh, that one's and I feel like I get that one so much no matter which version of the game I play.
The big spinning blades and oh man,
he has become Shuriken.
Destroyer of worlds.
But yeah, once you've beaten that one, the game ends here unless you've got all the Chaos Emeralds, as Sonic specifically. Yeah, so there is a Doomsday Zone to this game, essentially. It's called Egg Reverie Zone, and this one's interesting. Nice little stage. But you're not just fighting against Eggman this time. It's Eggman and Heavy King, who is, oh man, he's turned on Robotnik. Who could have saw this one coming? Doesn't it always happen?
Despite
his hubris.
Despite being classic, it is still modern in some ways.
Yeah, you're right. Nora.
Oh, I love the visual of Eggman's mech, which I think has an official name. It's like his klepto mech or something. Oh, it's so funny. Clashing, like locking arms with the evolved King Heavy, and this is another one that definitely takes a few times to get the hang of how, your opportunities to score a hit is supersonic, but ooh boy, it feels good. Like like Supersonic's flight and how they managed to make it work by also, but you can also land and just walk around on the ground as well. But this one's real good. We already talked about how good the music is and when that guitar lick comes in and hot damn. What a cool fight.
You have to get used to it a little bit. Your Heavy King can shave off like 10 rings at once if you get hit with those energy balls, so don't.
Woof.
Yeah.
I personally have not made it to Egg Reverie ever. Because like I said earlier, I'm bad at special stages. But truth be told, while we're talking about it, I'm watching a video of it right now, and it looks super cool. And I would love to play it.
For a pro tip for next time, Jake, you can jump straight to it if you use level select with the debug mode enabled.
Oh, yeah.
So, just like on the classic games.
If you can become a Blue Spheres weirdo like the rest of us, you too can skip your way to Egg Reverie.
Anyway, that's it. It's like once you get used to it, it's not that bad.
Yep.
Beat both of them, beat both bosses, and you finish the game. And Sonic shoots off to appear in Sonic Forces. Well,
yes, I was going to say you get a beautifully animated and rendered ending cutscene, and you do realize that that is where he's going to end up, isn't it?
We should have clued in based on the fact that in that cutscene, the pose he makes is the same pose he made in the teaser trailer for Sonic Forces.
Yep.
So there you go.
Which is a reference to some classic art.
And so then he goes to appear in that game with way worse physics than in this one. Okay.
Yeah.
But he's got the drop dash, so whatever.
Yes.
But he shouldn't have been there.
And then a year later, we got Encore mode, and we can just forget about that, because he's back from Forces to have more fun.
Okay, it's all over. But that's Sonic Mania. I'm really happy with it, especially when they improved it. Yeah, it's a pretty good game, that. There's more to talk about. I did make a list of like all the different other modes you got, because you got like the competition mode. It's really fun. It's like Sonic 2's, but you get a lot of the sort of the special stage tiebreaker. You get the Mean Bean thing, which is also Mean Bean, as we mentioned before. It's a mode you can unlock. So good old Mean Bean.
The competition mode is automatically better in this than Sonic 2 because Takenobu I Made Daytona USA soundtrack Mitsuyoshi is the announcer.
Go! Yeah, it's great, man.
Still as squished as ever, even with the widescreen aspect ratio. It still manages to be just kind of like this sandwiched on top of each other. I mean, I don't know if there's a better way to do it than with maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little better in Encore mode because you can do 4 players and it all, fits together nicely.
We could probably sandwich those into another episode. We've talked about them, but, Encore mode also brought like the Sonic Mania Adventures shorts. It also brought in playable Ray the Flying Squirrel and Mighty the Armadillo, including like their own little scenario in the Encore mode, which has a cool, like, it's Knuckles Chaotix like inspired to where instead of lives you collect the other characters and like swap between them when you take hits or with a button press. And another,
it's just a nice excuse to replay Sonic Mania, really, with a new function. No worry about lives, just keep collecting stuff. It's
new level layouts and new color palettes and everything.
The much beloved Sunset's color scheme for Green Hill from Sonic Advance 3 and also all the fan games is present here. So
it doesn't
if you like that.
Stardust Speedway become a future version?
I'd have to actually check. I will admit, I did not play through all of Encore mode before this.
I could be wrong about that. It's been a hot
I'm pretty sure they do use some pretty clever like nods to previous layouts and stuff. Yeah, it's all really cool. Encore mode, new, and like all of this came with like the physical. Basically, this was their way of having like a physical release of Sonic Mania after doing the digital one. So they give you an actual physical one that you could buy with reversible cover and cool things, and also all these cool new features.
Yeah, Izuka basically said, like, I wouldn't want to do a physical version of Sonic Mania unless there was, like, something added to it to give it that, extra value to make it worth it. And I think they added that extra value real nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
Yes.
that's Sonic Mania Plus, which makes me think of like Mega Collection Plus. Back in the day, I wonder if that was intentional, probably.
Yeah.
And Encore mode, new pinball bonus stage based on Trap Tower from Sega Sonic Arcade, and also from Sega Sonic Arcade. It's our boys Ray and Mighty right here, brand new playable characters. They're great. I love them. Ray's basically can fly around like a... he glides around like the Super Mario World cape. Yeah. Might as well. I really love doing that, actually. It's a great little control scheme.
My last favorite little bit, which was mostly expanded upon in arcade mode, but I love that everyone has a super form. Like Super Sonic still feels like more special because it's like a full, he's got the crackling electricity and the big golden thing, and the other ones are more like, it's like a nice compromise of like,
They're along for the ride.
They're just flashing. They're just flashing versions of their original sprites. It's fine. But I'm glad that you get a reason for collecting the emeralds again. And I know Prismaya's going to be like, well, I don't like it. But it's fine that we have it in there. This isn't for you, Prismaya. Sorry, Mika. This is for Sonic fans. Oh, no.
Oh,
I do. Okay, my only nitpick is I wish Tails had his super flickies as well.
Yeah. But that would just be a way of cheesing the bosses.
But hey, what a good game, huh?
yes.
Absolutely a great game.
I know we've talked about how, with hindsight, we can't believe they dropped the ball by following this up with Forces and tying it directly into it. But I feel like this has had such a long-lasting positive thing for Sonic as a whole, because even with the things like that, like I still see people say like, yeah, well, at least they did Mania.
Yes.
Even when it's gotten its darkest. It still seems weird that they have not done a proper follow-up to this. I guess the Origins collection is the closest we've gotten, and even then, like, we've talked about how complicated that is, but yeah, like, do we think that Sega just doesn't know what they would want for a proper follow-up?
Maybe they just don't want to, because this wasn't like, this is a great game in its own right, but the reason it stops from being like one of my all-time favorites is it is a lot of rehashing. Really great rehashes with lots of remixes and stuff, but it's still not its own little story. It's still not like a Sonic 3 and Knuckles telling a story across the, a whole new island or something, where it is dependent on, like, I suppose, of course, because it's a nostalgia game, it's going to be dependent on nostalgia, but they're expecting too many people, like, they want people to be pointing at the screen and being like, I remember that, rather than, oh shit, this new thing is really cool. And there are plenty of cool new things, but there's not enough for it to be that. And I guess this fulfilled what they wanted it to be, which was like, remember the things that you used to like? Here they are again. And it's great at that, but that's all this mission accomplished for that. It's the things you like to get, but all over again, just done really well. So
yeah, I still feel like, okay, you did that. Like, let this whole team like just do their own original game. Like, you don't even have to. It doesn't even have to be the same number of zones. You can have less zones. Like. Yeah. It is beyond my comprehension why they haven't asked them to do that, but I still hold out hope for something. And
your lips to their ears.
Hey, so in between the time we recorded this and the release of the episode, Sega announced Sonic Superstars. Not a direct follow-up to Sonic Mania, but from what we've seen, it sure seems to be using it for inspiration, so here's hoping it turns out good. Sonic Origins Plus also released and was basically what they showed. It patched a couple more issues, and people still have some lingering issues, but I think we all still kind of stand by our soft recommendation to where if you're gonna start with those classic games, it's still a pretty solid collection. It is very silly that the Plus content isn't actually on the physical release and you have to download it, but what are you gonna do? But it does make me that whatever everyone involved in that game decides to, and I know they've tried. I know it's difficult. If they get an original project off the ground, I am day one. Just out of a spiritual connection. You got me, whatever it is. I will support y'all. Hey, me again, to let you know that Evening Star Studio, which is a studio made up of a lot of Sonic Mania team members, including Christian Whitehead, has released the trailer announcement for their new game. It's called Penny's Big Breakaway, and it looks like an adorable 3D platformer, and you can wishlist it on just about everything right now, so go do that.
I do wonder if maybe, this is just a random theory, I wonder if maybe all of this has been part of a multi-year plan that Sega has, because you have Sonic Mania, then Forces, and then you have some time in between, and then you have Origins, and then Frontier, and then maybe they're trying to hit certain special yearly marks or something like that.
Maybe they're waiting to see how people respond to Origins before committing to doing another classic Sonic game. At least we're getting lots of classic Sonic content every now and then.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm hoping that, the fact we're getting a physical version of Origins with more content is a sign that, they still understand there's a lot of love for classic Sonic.
Yeah.
A physical version with art drawn by the sketch sector, otherwise known as Sonic Mark from the Sonic Paradox. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Nice.
Holy f***ing shit. I did not realize that.
Yeah. Mark Hughes has gone on to make some really great art.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That is, wow. I am speechless. That rules so hard.
He went from asking the eternal question of why the hell is Sonic in a car, and now he's making wonderful cover art and
for a game that has a game where Sonic is driving a car.
yeah, because it's full of those Game Gear games. It all comes full circle,
ain't that irony?
Track in Sonic. Yeah,
that is so cool. Yep. I wish that collection all the best. I like I said, I love playable Amy. The game, just tossing those Game Gear games in there is still lost on me. But hey, it's it ain't.
Some
gonna
people
kill
are really
nobody.
excited about that.
Yep.
I think when we did our compilations episode, we were like, oh man, they just keep dumping these bargain basement Game Gear games on here. But no, apparently it's been a long time since they've actually done that. So and we just forget that time passes.
The last time those Game Gear games were put out were maybe 8 out of 12 made it onto 3DS Virtual Console.
So it is the first time for a lot of people. And it also shows that, no, actually, that was a long time ago, and we're ancient, and we're withering as we speak.
Yeah, I really have enjoyed Keith John Stack on Twitter's half ironic countdown to the update that is about when you can play Sonic Blast from the Game Gear officially again.
I was going to say, seeing a lot of heat for Sonic Blast on Twitter, especially specifically that. In 1 or 2 other
There's
spots.
a lot of heat for Sonic Blast and the Game Gear on this podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love this energy right now. All such big fans.
That's a word.
Man, I just love classic Sonic. Glad he's still going.
I just love good Sonic.
Yeah, no, true. So to end this discussion, I'll just ask the question which I've written in the outline. I was very tired when I finished this last night at 4 a.m. So the final question to end this discussion about a very good Sonic game is, who is the most attractive hard-boiled heavy?
The objectively correct answer is Heavy Magician. Everybody loves a show.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. What do you think?
I do love her design. I do think I have to go with Heavy King because I also consider myself a Heavy King.
It's relatable.
We big boys got to stick together.
Understandable.
Power is attractive.
I love his little cape. It reminds me of like AOSTH and Siam Robotnik. You know? It's like...
Really over the top. You know, it's much bigger than regular Robotnik's cape.
Yeah.
He's really outdoing his former master. I think they're all pretty neat.
True.
It's true.
Anyway, that covers Sonic Mania, everyone. Thanks for joining us to talk as a bunch of people who really like Sonic Mania talk about how much they like Sonic Mania. You came here for varied discussion and you did not get it. It's fine.
This was
yeah,
inevitable.
thank you for... Yeah. Outside of the podcast, if you want to find us on the social world, well, for me, you can find me at Falero across the internet. That's FAULERRO.
Gotta love that jingle.
It's nice to hear it live, for once, I will say. It's very nice.
You can find me on various socials as Rock the Jake, and you can find me on Twitch as Mr. Rock the Jake.
You can find me on Twitter at Cyberlink420.
You can find me around the internet as Game Buddy, sometimes with a 123, and on Twitter at Great Job Jeremy. That's GR and the number 8.
And I'm Ginger. You can find me on Twitter, assuming it still exists by the time this goes up and it's not just kind of in flames. I'm on Twitter at Ginger_Hale. That's probably the main spot, really. But you can, I did mention at the top, but I do have a funny little website called carnivalnight.zone. It's a funny little thing. Check it out.
Yeah, go visit it and find out for yourself why we all like it very much.
It's very good.
And special thanks, as always, goes out to Amy Waters for the use of our theme song from her album Gotta Go Slow. You can check out more of her work on YouTube and Bandcamp, and you should. It's great.
Yes.
And remember to subscribe, review, share. You know, at this point, you know that we want you to listen to the podcast, and you probably already are. So but maybe more people can listen to it. You know, that'll be nice. As we just talk about games that we like and say how good they are. Except for the times that we don't, and I'm sure that's coming up soon. So for all you people who are sick of the love fest, more misery is coming, don't you worry about it. Anyway, as for next time, now we've said this a few times, but we're going to do something a little bit different. But no, I actually mean it this time. We haven't worked out exactly how it's going to work, the logistics of it, but we have decided as a group, we are going to write a Sonic the Hedgehog fanfic. Oh boy! So, we're going to try. We are going to get together and put our brains together to be a young, fresh group of Sonic fans on the internet and put our creative muscles to the test to give you our first ever The Hill is Always Greener written on the podcast fanfic.
Get ready for some grade A content.
I've got some ideas brewing already.
And I don't know how many of us have had experience with it before. It's a process, and we're going to condense it down to a few hours. So come join us for next time when we try to make that happen. It's going to be interesting. But until then, boy, thank you for joining us on The Hill is Always Greener. I'm Falero.
I'm Rock the Jake.
I'm Cyberlink.
I'm Game Buddy.
And I'm Ginger Hale. Oh yeah, this is happening.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, it is.
I probably just peeked there, sorry.
It's fine, that's part of the experience.
Oh, yeah, this is peaking.
This has been The Hill is Always Greener, and we'll see you on the other side.